Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into another time, a time of blossoms and shadows, of gods who watch mortals with quiet amusement, and of secrets whispered beneath a sky so blue it almost feels unreal. You blink your eyes open and find yourself standing knee-deep in a sea of wildflowers. Soft wind lifts your hair as golden petals drift past your cheeks. The sun glows like poured honey, and you breathe in a scent so sweet it nearly makes your head spin. You are Persephone, daughter of Demeter, goddess of the harvest, a girl whose laughter echoes like silver bells across bright meadows. You reach out, brushing your fingers across pale purple crocuses, feeling the cool silk of the petals against your skin. All around you, bees drone lazily, wings shimmering like tiny bits of glass. And for a moment, it feels like life could stay this way forever. Just sunshine, flowers, and the occasional playful nymph splashing in a distant stream. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know down in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's drifting off in Athens, who's yawning in Brooklyn, and who's wide awake in Melbourne. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The grass whispers against your ankles as you walk, gathering an armful of poppies so red they almost glow. You hum softly, thinking vaguely about how your mother would scold you for wandering off. But honestly, the breeze feels too perfect to waste on worrying. Far off on the horizon, you glimpse a flicker of something, a shadow perhaps, or maybe just a tree waving dark branches. You squint, trying to make out the shape. Whatever it is, it vanishes as quickly as it appeared. People have long wondered whether the Greeks genuinely believed that gods could swoop in and steal mortals away, or whether tales like yours were simply ways to explain natural changes, like the turning of seasons. Either way, your story became one of the most famous in Greek mythology, retold in temples, poems, and the crumbling marble walls of forgotten shrines. Suddenly, 2 butterflies as big as your palms flutter across your path, wings dotted black and silver. You watch them spiral upward into a beam of sunlight, and for a second, it seems as though even the air is holding its breath. You laugh and shake your head. "Get it together, Persephone," you murmur under your breath. Little known among ancient poets was the belief that Persephone didn't always go by that name. Some called you Kor, which simply meant the maiden, as if no one bothered to remember your proper name until you became important enough to marry a god. A bit rude, honestly. You keep moving, trailing your fingers across the grass cool and damp with morning dew. The earth feels solid beneath your sandals, though once or twice you think you feel a faint trembling underfoot, like the ground is breathing. Overhead, a flock of small white birds sails across the sky, their cries sharp and sweet, echoing like silver bells. A breeze stirs again, carrying the faintest, strangest scent, a mixture of iron and pomegranate. You wrinkle your nose. Pomegranate? Out here? That's definitely odd. You shrug it off, chalking it up to one of those countryside mysteries. Like why goats sometimes stare at you like they know your entire life's secrets. You push deeper into the meadow, brushing aside taller grasses. Your toes sink into the cool soil. The flowers sway around you in gentle waves of color. In the distance stands a single oak tree, its branches gnarled and twisting, dark against the blazing blue sky. A chill dances along your spine. You can't look away from it. It's as though the tree itself is watching you. You tilt your head. You could swear there's someone standing half hidden behind the trunk, a man in dark robes, silent as stone. You blink, and he's gone. Probably just a shepherd, you say, trying to convince yourself, though your voice sounds smaller than you'd like. People still discuss whether the myth of your abduction was meant as a cautionary tale for young Greek girls, warning them not to wander alone, or whether it was simply a cosmic explanation for why crops vanish each winter. Some scholars even think it grew from older, pre-Greek rituals tied to fertility and the rebirth of the earth. You decide not to think about that right now. The sun is warm, the sky impossibly blue, and besides, the meadow smells deliciously sweet, as if the entire world were made of honey and blossoms. Yet deep down, you can't shake the feeling that someone, or something, is watching you. And as the breeze shifts again, you catch that faint tang of pomegranate lingering in the air, like a promise or a warning. The breeze seems to die down, as though the entire meadow is holding its breath. Even the bees fall silent, their wings stilling in the golden light. You slow your steps, your eyes flicking left and right, scanning the waving grasses. A patch of shadow lies beneath the old oak tree, darker than it should be under the shining sun. A ripple of cold slips down your spine, as sudden as stepping into a mountain stream. You fold your arms around yourself, feeling small beneath the endless sky. You're Persephone, daughter of the harvest, but right now you feel no bigger than a trembling sparrow. You squint into the darkness under the oak, trying to convince yourself it's nothing. A trick of the light, the flicker of a breeze stirring the leaves, but the shadows remain, solid as stone. And then you see him. A tall figure steps forward, as silent as moonlight on marble. His robes hang in deep folds of dark cloth, rippling ever so slightly, as though caught in a secret current only he can feel. His skin looks pale in the bright day, though really, it's the way shadows cling to him, refusing to let him go. It's Hades, king of the underworld. He stands perfectly still, head slightly tilted, his eyes locked on you. There's something in that gaze that's not quite hunger, not quite sorrow, but a strange mix of both. Some people have wondered whether the Greeks saw Hades purely as a fearsome captor, or as a strangely sympathetic figure, simply doing his duty in the endless cycle of life and death. Some ancient poets even called him Pluton, the wealthy one, because all souls eventually came to him, and the riches of the earth lay beneath his domain. Hades lifts one hand, as if testing the breeze. Around your feet, the grass seems to lean toward him, as though drawn by an invisible tide. In some versions of your myth, Hades wasn't portrayed as evil at all. Instead, he was seen as a shy god who kept mostly to himself, managing the business of the dead and avoiding the endless drama of Olympus. It's almost possible to picture him hunched over a mountain of papyrus scrolls sighing, "Just once, I'd like a day off." You stand frozen, poppies slipping from your arms and spilling red petals across the grass like drops of paint. Your pulse thunders so loudly in your ears, you're certain he must hear it. Hades inclines his head slightly. It's almost polite, like a nobleman acknowledging someone across a grand banquet hall. But his eyes stay fixed on yours, dark and unreadable, like obsidian mirrors. You clear your throat, trying to summon your voice. "Hi," you squeak out, because apparently that's the best your divine lineage can manage in this moment. He doesn't reply. Instead, he takes one silent step closer. The sunlight seems to bend around him, unsure whether to illuminate him or leave him hidden in shadow. "Probably just a shepherd," you mumble under your breath, although this time it sounds even less convincing. A breeze picks up again, rustling the poppies that now lie scattered on the ground. It carries a chill that smells faintly of stone corridors and cool, damp earth. You shiver despite the warmth of the day. Some people still argue about whether the story of your abduction was meant as a metaphor for Greek marriage customs, where brides were symbolically taken from their families. Others think it was simply a cosmic story to explain the rhythm of seasons and crops. Either way, it's probably not helping you much right now. Hades tilts his head a little further, studying you like you're some rare blossom he's never seen before. He doesn't say a word, but his eyes seem to ask a silent question. Do you truly know who you are? The silence grows so deep, you hear only your own breathing, quick and uneven. At last he speaks. His voice is low and smooth, like the hush of wind blowing through ancient crypts. Persephone. He says your name as though tasting it, each syllable rolling like pebbles down a marble stairway. Your heart stutters. Yes? You reply, your voice cracking embarrassingly. That's me. Hades takes another step closer, and the petals around your feet stir as if reaching toward him. He lifts his pale hand again, this time lightly brushing his fingertips over a poppy still clutched in your trembling grasp. The red petals quiver, and a few drift away like drops of blood dissolving in water. You blink rapidly, your mind struggling to process exactly what's happening. On one hand, he's technically your uncle, which is a little awkward. On the other hand, Greek family trees are basically one big knot of tangled threads, so who can even say what's normal around here? In one obscure hymn, Hades was even praised as a fair and just ruler who never cheated mortals out of their fates. Compared to Zeus, who can't seem to keep his romantic escapades under control, Hades almost seems like the poster child for responsible godhood. Though, this particular moment might be an exception. Hades lowers his hand again and lets it fall to his side. He doesn't speak further. He just stands there, waiting, watching. Somewhere deep beneath the ground, you feel a soft vibration, like the earth bracing itself for something monumental. And in that hush, a thought slips into your mind, quiet but impossible to ignore. Why do I suddenly feel like my entire life is about to change? The world seems frozen around you, the meadow caught in a breathless pause. The sun still shines brilliantly above, yet the air feels colder, as if winter has slipped its fingers into the warmth of spring. You open your mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. Hades remains utterly motionless, his eyes fixed on you, except for the subtle ripple of his robes shifting in an invisible breeze. Your fingers clutch the stems of poppies so tightly that petals drop to the ground, drifting in silent spirals. And then, a low rumble shudders through the earth. The sound is deep, almost like a mountain groaning under its own weight. The ground beneath your sandals vibrates. A thin crack zips through the soil, slicing a cluster of crocuses neatly in half. You stumble backward, your heart hammering so hard it feels as if it might burst. People have long wondered whether the Greeks imagined your kidnapping as a literal event, with the earth splitting open beneath your feet, or whether it was meant purely as a symbolic story. Some tellings describe Hades bursting forth in a chariot shrouded in shadows. Others imagine the ground shimmering like sunlight on water, gently opening to swallow you. Either way, the ending is the same. You vanish from the world above. You swallow hard and stare around the meadow. Everything seems perfectly normal. A tiny ladybug crawls along your sandal strap, blissfully oblivious to the fact that the earth is tearing itself open beneath you. You try to reassure yourself. Okay, that's probably fine. but the crack widens. The soil buckles and crumbles away in jagged chunks. There's an idea among some scholars that your myth was inspired by real earthquakes that shook ancient Greece, especially in places like Sicily. Locals might have woven seismic events into their stories to explain how entire fields, or even temples, could disappear overnight. Considering how often Greek myths include earthquakes, or at least goats behaving suspiciously, that theory seems quite believable. Your feet shift on the trembling ground. A hush falls over the meadow, as though even the sky is listening. Not far away, Hades stands perfectly still, watching you with an expression both calm and solemn. He raises one pale hand as though pressing invisible air back into place. But the rift keeps growing. The soil gives way at your heels, revealing a deep fissure plunging into darkness. From somewhere far below, a chill breeze rushes upward, smelling of damp stone, old earth, and a faint metallic tang like cold iron. You peer into the depths, trying to glimpse a bottom, but it's just endless blackness. Right, so this is happening, you mutter under your breath, because somehow speaking makes it feel a little less impossible. Another deep rumble vibrates through your bones. Pebbles bounce and skitter across the grass like scattered seeds. You try to step away, but the ground tilts beneath you. Your sandal slides off and disappears into the crevice, swallowed by the dark as quickly as a slice of toast vanishing behind the kitchen counter. People still debate whether your descent into the underworld was intended to symbolize a romantic abduction or served as a stark warning about how swiftly life can change under the will of the gods. Some believe it's the ultimate story of transformation. A maiden becomes a queen, innocence giving way to wisdom. Others insist the Greeks were simply masters of dramatic storytelling. Both might be true. Hades steps closer, moving slowly, his robes rustling faintly. He raises his hand and gestures toward the yawning rift. You stare into it, your eyes wide. Deep below, you think you see a flicker of reddish light, glowing like embers beneath dark, still water. Your breath catches in your throat, and for a fleeting moment, you hear what sounds like faint music drifting up from the depths. A slow, mournful melody, played on invisible strings. You tear your gaze away, shaking your head. Nope, 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 nope. But the ground beneath your feet begins to crumble further. Small avalanches of dirt and pebbles trickle into the darkness. From the corner of your eye, you see Hades lifting his arm, as though offering it to you. His voice comes again, low and soft as silk, brushing over stone. Come with me. You hesitate, glancing wildly around for any other escape. But the meadow now feels impossibly far away, like a painted backdrop peeling from an old theatre stage. Your heart beats so fast it's almost absurd. If your mother were here, she'd probably be charging across the meadow, brandishing a sheaf of wheat to smack Hades over the head. But she's not. It's just you, and the king of the underworld. There's a curious version of your story in which Persephone goes willingly, drawn by fascination and the lure of power, eager to be queen of a hidden realm. Many scholars doubt that version. It does sound suspiciously like the gods trying to spin a better story for themselves. You open your mouth to protest, but before the words can form, the earth beneath you collapses completely. You tumble forward, arms flailing, poppies spinning away from your hands like scarlet snow. And the last thing you see before the darkness closes around you is the calm face of Hades, his eyes shining faintly as he reaches out to catch you. Darkness closes over you like a soft velvet curtain, cool as midnight breezes flowing through ancient corridors. Your hair flies wildly around your face as you plunge downward, weightless as a drifting petal. Above you, a narrow slit of daylight grows smaller and smaller, shrinking from a coin of gold to a single bright pinprick. Then it disappears altogether. For a long moment, you're simply suspended in blackness. There's no floor, no walls, not even the echo of your own heartbeat. Just silence so profound, it feels like the world itself has stopped breathing. Then, suddenly, your feet land with a gentle thump on solid stone. Cool and perfectly smooth, the floor seems to hum beneath your sandals. You blink rapidly, trying to make sense of the shadows gathering around you. Slowly, shapes emerge. Soaring pillars, high ceilings curving overhead, walls that glisten as though damp with mineral water. And there stands Hades, beside you once more, as if he's been waiting there all along. His robes fall in dark folds, utterly still despite the faint draught swirling through the chamber. His eyes rest on yours, calm and dark, reflecting the shimmer of unseen torchlight. People have often wondered how the Greeks imagined the entrance to the underworld. Some believed it lay hidden in caves. Others described a misty river crossing guarded by silent oarsmen. There were even places in southern Italy where locals insisted real openings led down to the realm of the dead. You try to speak, only to cough as the air hits your throat. It's sharp and mineral heavy, laced with a faint sweetness that almost makes your teeth ache. Okay, underground air. That's a new experience, you mumble, clearing your throat. Hades doesn't answer. Instead, he raises one pale hand, fingers curling with precise elegance, as though conducting invisible music. A distant rhythm grows around you. Clip-clop, clip-clop. The sound of hooves striking stone echoes from far down a shadowy tunnel. It draws closer, louder, until you squint into the dark, trying to see what's approaching. From the blackness surges a chariot, pulled by 4 enormous black horses. Their manes ripple like waves of liquid midnight. Sparks flash beneath their hooves, and their eyes glow red as embers buried in coal. Steam puffs from their nostrils, turning white as snow in the cool air. In some ancient vase paintings, Hades' chariot wasn't always drawn by ordinary horses. Artists sometimes imagined creatures with wings or even twisting serpent tails. Apparently, just plain horses weren't dramatic enough for the gods of Greece. The chariot itself gleams with dark bronze panels engraved in swirling patterns of vines, skulls, and tiny flowers. Its wheels spin smoothly, rimmed with iron, despite the uneven floor. Hades steps forward and extends his hand toward you. "Come," he says, his voice low and certain. You look at him, then at the towering horses, and raise your eyebrows. "Seriously? I just fell through the earth, and now we're carpooling." Hades blinks once, as if considering your question, then simply lifts you as though you weigh nothing, and places you gently in the chariot. The instant your feet touch the chariot's floor, a subtle vibration thrums up through your bones. It's not unpleasant, more like the gentle power of water roaring far below a bridge. Hades climbs in beside you, his robes flowing around his legs like liquid shadow. With a snap of his fingers, the horses surge forward. People have long discussed whether the Greeks used chariots in myths merely as symbols of power, or as literal divine vehicles. The gods rarely arrived on foot. They preferred chariots, giant eagles, or sometimes very dramatic sea creatures. Walking, apparently, was far too mundane for deities. Wind whips across your face as the chariot speeds through a tunnel of black stone that glitters with tiny flecks of silver. Sparks shoot from the wheels with each turn, like stars flaring and dying in the darkness. At first, you squeeze your eyes shut, but curiosity gradually gets the better of you. You peek around Hades' shoulder. Along the tunnel walls stretch intricate carvings, mortals planting seeds, kings raising goblets, lovers stealing secret kisses. Between each scene, small gemstones glow softly, emerald, ruby, topaz, like watchful eyes. It's so breathtaking that for a few moments, you nearly forget that technically, you're being kidnapped. Hades glances at you, his eyes dark, yet softened by something almost gentle. "The underworld is not a place of cruelty," he says, his voice low and resonant. "It is simply another realm." You snort softly. "Yeah? Tell that to my mother." He doesn't answer, but for the briefest second, the corners of his mouth lift, ever so slightly. You blink. Did the king of the underworld just almost smile? It's true that some ancient hymns spoke of Hades as polite and just, far less chaotic than other gods. He was known to honor funeral rites and respect the natural order of life and death. Compared to Zeus, who seemed to cause trouble wherever he went, Hades could almost be considered the sensible sibling. The horses thunder onward, hooves sparking like fireflies. Gradually, the tunnel opens into an enormous cavern. A lake stretches out before you, its surface black as obsidian, catching the faint red glow flickering beneath the water. The air cools, tinged with salt, and the faint echo of distant music. You clutch the edge of the chariot as it slows to a halt. Hades rises, his figure outlined against the dark waters. He looks down at you, calm and solemn. "We have arrived." You stare up at him, your cheeks still flushed from fear and wonder. "Wonderful, just wonderful. I can't wait to see the amenities." Though he doesn't laugh, there's a certain softness in his eyes as he watches you. Above the still waters, tiny points of light shimmer and vanish, like stars floating beneath the surface of a midnight sea. You shiver, not certain if it's from the chill or from the weight of your own fate pressing against your chest. And from somewhere deep within the dark lake you hear that soft music again, like a secret waiting to be told. You step carefully out of the chariot, your sandals touching cool stone polished so smooth it almost feels like glass beneath your feet. For a moment, you just stand there, catching your breath, listening to the gentle lapping of invisible ripples across the black lake's surface. Hades stands beside you, silent and watchful, as though he's weighing a question too heavy for words. The air around you shimmers faintly. A subtle breeze carries scents of damp earth and something crisp and metallic, like rain falling on ancient stones. People have often wondered how the Greeks imagined the underworld's architecture. Some described it as endless caverns dripping with water. Others imagined grand marble halls rivaling any palace above ground. Many poets added flourishes of their own, ceilings carved with stars, rivers of silver light, and walls that whispered secrets of the dead. Hades gestures for you to follow him. You hesitate a moment, glancing back at the black lake where tiny sparks glow far beneath the surface like hidden stars. Then you take a step forward, curiosity propelling you deeper into this silent world. The path leads you into soaring corridors where the walls shine like wet marble. Soft lights glow within the stone itself, pale blues and gentle golds pulsing slowly, as if the entire underworld is breathing around you. At first, the only sound is your own footsteps echoing off the polished floor. Then, almost too faint to notice, you hear a low murmur. It weaves around you like drifting mist. At first, you think it's wind, but as you listen closer, you realize it's voices, many voices, overlapping, soft and endless. It's oddly soothing, like standing beside a distant ocean. In certain ancient beliefs, the underworld was thought to be astonishingly well organized. It wasn't all gloom and doom. There were officers, judges, and clerks who recorded the details of every mortal's life. Imagine discovering that the afterlife wasn't fire and brimstone, but endless bureaucratic paperwork. Hades himself was sometimes called the ultimate cosmic administrator. As you follow Hades through towering arches, the whispers grow clearer until you begin catching fragments of conversations. A woman describing how sweet the grapes were that summer. A man boasting of building the largest kiln in his village. Another voice recalling the sharp smell of crushed mint leaves. You glance at Hades. Are those people talking? He inclines his head. Echoes of mortal lives. All that was treasured remains here, drifting through eternity. You blink, amazed. So the underworld is basically an archive? A faint curve touches his lips, among other things. Some ancient Greeks believed souls could carry lingering memories of taste and smell into the afterlife. It was thought that beloved scents, lavender, fresh bread, rain-soaked earth, might drift through Hades' halls to comfort the newly dead. Imagine eternity smelling faintly like bakery rolls. Not such a bad fate after all. As you walk, the floor beneath your feet changes. Smooth stone becomes a mosaic of tiny tiles, arranged in sweeping patterns of stars, rivers, and wheat fields. Each step sends delicate flashes of color across the polished surface, like sunlight flickering on gentle waves. You pause beside a particularly beautiful mosaic depicting Demeter, your mother, crowned in golden stalks of wheat, her arms spread wide over rolling green hills. Your chest tightens at the sight. Hades follows your gaze, his voice dropping lower. She searches for you still. Your throat grows tight. You try to laugh it off. Yeah, that sounds like her. Some people have debated whether your myth was simply a metaphor for daughters leaving home in marriage, a kind of symbolic death of childhood, or if it was a deeper explanation of how seeds vanish into soil each winter, only to rise again in spring. Either way, your story has carried meanings both tender and sorrowful for centuries. Hades gestures for you to keep walking. There's more I wish to show you. You hesitate. The air in this place feels heavier, woven through with memories and secrets, pressing against your skin like soft fabric. But something deep inside you urges you forward. Because even in this place of shadows, beauty shimmers like hidden jewels. And you can feel that your story isn't finished yet. You keep close behind Hades as he leads you through the glowing corridors. Your sandals make a soft tapping sound on the mosaic floor, each step echoing faintly between the marble walls. Sometimes he glances back over his shoulder, as though to be sure you're still there. Despite everything, that small gesture makes something in your chest unclench, just a little. The carvings along the hallway change as you walk. No longer scenes of mortal life. Now they show gods locked in heated debates. Zeus stands mid-roar, lightning crackling in his raised fist. Athena leans forward, eyes sharp and calculating. Aphrodite raises her chin, framed by curling waves of sculpted sea foam, all of them frozen in a moment of divine tension. You pause before a relief showing Demeter, your mother, standing in a field of golden grain, her expression fierce. Her arms stretch skyward, while around her, small carved flowers wilt and droop. A chill slides down your spine as you stare at her stone face. "That's my mother," you whisper. Hades stands close beside you, his dark voice gentle. "Yes, and she is not pleased. He continues down the hall, and you follow him into a grand chamber. The ceiling arches high above your head, glittering like a silver dome dusted with stars. At the chamber's center sits a massive table of dark marble, long enough to seat a dozen gods. Around it stand empty thrones, their backs carved with symbols, thunderbolts, olive branches, seashells, ears of wheat. You look around, feeling impossibly small. So what is this place? Hades gestures to the table. This is where bargains were struck. Your eyes widen. Bargains? Like business deals? He gives the faintest nod. Of a sort. Some ancient accounts suggest that even the gods had to negotiate among themselves, as though ruling the cosmos required endless meetings and compromise. There's one hymn where Demeter threatens to let humanity starve unless you're returned. It reads almost like a divine soap opera. Hades lowers himself into one of the marble chairs, his dark robe spilling around him like liquid shadow. His fingers trace faint lines worn into the table's polished surface. When you vanished, Demeter searched the earth for you. Crops withered, fields lay empty. Winter fell across lands that had never known snow. You frown, trying to process his words. So, my mother accidentally caused an ice age because I went missing. Hades looks at you evenly. She loves you, perhaps too fiercely. Some people still discuss whether your story is simply an agricultural metaphor, describing how the earth falls barren each winter and revives each spring. Others believe it holds deeper truths about mothers and daughters, loss and renewal. Hades lifts his eyes to yours. Zeus tried to ignore it at first. He has many other distractions. You snort softly. Yeah, like turning into animals to chase women. A flicker of something almost like amusement passes over Hades' face. He doesn't deny it. Eventually, the famine became so terrible, even the halls of Olympus felt threatened. Mortals stopped burning offerings, prayers fell silent, and without devotion, the gods begin to weaken. He leans forward slightly. Zeus had no choice. He summoned me here. You glance at the empty thrones and imagine the gods gathered around this very table. Wait, so the entire pantheon sat here discussing my personal life? Hades inclines his head. Essentially, yes. You let out a small, disbelieving laugh. Fantastic. My family drama turned into a cosmic board meeting. There's a theory among some scholars that stories like yours help shape how Greeks approached politics and community life, showing that even the most powerful beings had to negotiate instead of simply ruling by force. The gods, it seems, weren't above a bit of parliamentary procedure. You reach out and touch the table's surface. It feels cold as ice, as though the echoes of divine arguments still linger in the stone. Small scratches and faded inscriptions hint at centuries of immortal debates. Demeter demanded your return, Hades continues softly. But Zeus hesitated. He feared the underworld might collapse without its queen. Your eyes go wide. Queen, me. Hades nods. Half the year above, half the year below. It was the only compromise the gods could accept. You shake your head, stunned. So my entire fate got decided like sharing custody of a pet goat. A quiet exhale escapes Hades. Mortals call it balance. People still discuss whether your 6-month split was literal. Some myths say you spent exactly half the year below ground, while others suggest the timeline was more symbolic, tied to harvest cycles and local rituals. Either way, your story became a reminder that life and death are always connected. You imagine Zeus slumped at this table, rubbing his temples while Demeter raged and Hades sat in silence, simply waiting. You huff a soft laugh. Honestly, I thought my family dinners were awkward. Hades rises slowly from his seat, his robes whispering across the floor. He circles the table, his eyes fixed on yours. The deal was struck, but in the end, the choice was yours. You blink. Mine? He gives a single, solemn nod. The pomegranate seeds. And suddenly, the weight of the chamber seems to press around you, filled with echoes of fate and decisions you didn't even realize you were making. But deep inside you, something sparks, a stubborn ember that insists even here, in the deepest shadows, you still have the power to choose. You stare at Hades, your mind spinning, trying to grasp his last words. The choice was yours, he says again, his voice low and certain. Your words come out in a half-choked laugh. Are you serious? Because I definitely don't remember getting a PowerPoint presentation about all of this. Hades watches you, his eyes dark as deep wells. He doesn't smile, but there's something gentle in his silence, as though he's giving you space to breathe. There are rules, Persephone. Even here, he murmurs. Throughout the centuries, people have debated what the pomegranate in your story truly meant. Some believed it symbolized marriage and fertility, binding you as wife and queen. Others saw it as the fruit of the dead, linking you forever to the underworld. And for some poets, it was simply the perfect explanation for why certain fruits stain everything they touch. A very Greek concern, honestly. Hades gestures toward a shallow stone basin carved into the marble table. You step closer and look inside. Resting at the bottom are a handful of bright red pomegranate seeds, glowing softly like tiny coals in the shadows. You wrinkle your nose. They look juicy and suspicious. Among the ancient stories, there's one peculiar detail: the belief that even a single bite of underworld food binds you to that realm forever. Some said it applied to any food, even a crumb. Others claimed only certain magical dishes, like honey cakes, or of course those gleaming pomegranate seeds, held that power. The Greeks seemed very concerned about the dangers of snacking in suspicious places. Hades steps closer. His voice lowers as though he's confiding secrets meant for no one else. Those who eat in the realm of the dead cannot fully return to the world of the living. You squint at him. Says who? He answers simply, the fates. You throw your hands up. Wonderful. 3 old ladies with scissors deciding my travel plans. A shadow of sorrow flickers across Hades' face. I offered you the seeds, he says gently, and you chose to taste them. So you belong partly above and partly here. Images flood your memory. The cool burst of juice in your mouth. The sharp sweetness. The way the red stained your fingertips. You remember thinking it tasted like life itself, vibrant and bittersweet all at once. People still argue over how many seeds you actually ate. Some stories insist it was 6, tying you to 6 months underground. Others say it was only 4, or even just 1. But no matter the number, that single taste sealed your fate. You let out a shaky breath. So basically, this entire cosmic custody battle happened because I got hungry? Hades exhales a faint sigh, his gaze never leaving yours. Or perhaps because you were curious, he says. Your eyes narrow. That's not fair. You can't dangle glowing fruit in front of someone and expect them not to try it. In some retellings of your myth, you ate the seeds deliberately, choosing to remain in the underworld, not as a victim, but as a queen staking her claim. Some modern scholars love that interpretation, seeing you as a symbol of women seizing power rather than waiting to be rescued. It's a far more empowering version of your story, though the ancient Greeks might have found it a little scandalous. Hades reaches into the basin and lifts one seed between his fingers. Its surface glistens under the low light, tiny droplets of juice catching the glow like rubies. "It's not a punishment," he says softly. "It's a bond between worlds, a path only you can walk." You cross your arms. A bond sounds suspiciously like a trap. Hades tilts his head. Think of it instead as a bridge. You shake your head. "So half my life is down here, half above, because of fruit." He inclines his head. "Because of choice." You roll your eyes. "Choice, right. You mean because I was kidnapped and bribed with snacks." Hades lowers his hand, letting the seed fall back into the basin with a soft, wet sound. His voice drops so low you almost have to lean closer to hear. "Even here, your choices matter, Persephone." You stare at him for a long moment. Despite everything, there's a glimmer of respect in his eyes, a quiet acknowledgement that you are more than just a girl plucking flowers in a sunlit meadow. You glance again at the pomegranate seeds, glowing faintly in the basin. They pulse gently, as if echoing your heartbeat. You reach out and run a fingertip across one, feeling its cool, slick skin. It's strangely beautiful, this fruit of contradictions, holding both life and death, freedom and captivity. People have speculated that the pomegranate may have come from lands far east of Greece, carried along ancient trade routes. Its clusters of bright seeds made it a perfect symbol of fertility and hidden potential. Whatever its origin, it's astonishing how much power the Greeks placed in one humble piece of fruit. Hades lowers his gaze. "Half the year with your mother, half with me. That was the agreement." You exhale slowly. "Was anyone going to ask me what I wanted?" A ghost of a smile crosses Hades' face. "Only you know your true place, Persephone." And though you stand in halls of shadow, with echoes of distant voices drifting like mist, you suddenly feel something fierce and unyielding inside you. A spark that reminds you that your story still belongs to you, no matter who tries to decide it for you. You linger near the basin, fingers still brushing over the smooth pomegranate seeds, feeling them cool and slightly sticky beneath your touch. A pulse of red seems to glow beneath their skins, as if each one holds a hidden ember of light. Hades stands beside you in silence, a patient figure carved from shadow and stone. He lifts one hand as though beckoning you to follow him again. "Come," he says. "Let me show you what your choice has brought into the world." People have wondered for centuries whether the Greeks truly believed that Persephone's journey shaped the rhythm of nature itself. Did they imagine her steps controlling the frost and blossoms? Or was it simply beautiful poetry to explain why the earth seems to fall asleep each winter? Perhaps it was both, a practical explanation and a comforting story. You step carefully after Hades, the soles of your sandals gliding over marble so polished it reflects ghostly shapes of flickering torchlight. A breeze stirs around you, carrying a scent that's crisp and cold, yet somehow laced with the sweetness of ripe fruit and freshly turned soil. You follow him into an enormous chamber. The ceiling arches high overhead, disappearing into darkness so deep it seems endless. Suspended above is a glowing dome swirling with shifting colors. Emerald greens, soft golds, shimmering silvers, fiery reds, all slowly rotating like a cosmic lantern. Beneath the dome rises a broad circular platform etched with symbols, stalks of wheat, delicate snowflakes, tiny blossoms, and burning suns. You stare, breath caught in your throat. What is this place? Hades glances at you. This is the axis of seasons. Some mystery cults believed you were not only queen of the underworld, but also guardian of nature's rhythms. Your story became a cosmic clock, marking the rise and fall of crops, the warmth and chill of winds, the planting and harvest. Ancient farmers may have whispered prayers to you, hoping for gentle rains and healthy grains. Hades raises his hands, and the swirling colors shift. Reds fade into delicate green, melting into gold. Along the chamber's walls ripple images of fields bursting with blossoms, trees draped in fresh leaves, and bees drifting lazily from flower to flower. This, Hades says, is spring. Your chest tightens as warmth spills across your skin. It's as though sunshine itself reaches down to stroke your cheek. You hear soft buzzing and the faint rustle of leaves, even though there's no wind. The imagery shifts again. The light grows brighter. The greens deepen into lush canopies. Fruit trees groan under heavy loads, and somewhere a chorus of cicadas buzzes. Summer, Hades murmurs. A gentle warmth radiates from the floor beneath your feet, and you half expect to see rippling heat waves across the stone. Suddenly, the colors fade into rich browns and deep golds. Leaves tumble in unseen breezes, catching the glow of soft orange light. A hint of wood smoke and crisp apples drifts through the chamber. And this, Hades says, is autumn. Scholars have long debated whether your myth precisely mirrored agricultural calendars, or whether it shifted depending on local festivals and crops. In some places, your return to the upper world might be celebrated in March. In others, not until late April. But the meaning stayed constant. You were the promise that life always comes back. The dome dims again. Frosty silver light spreads across the platform. Tiny snowflakes drift from nowhere, landing softly on the marble floor. The air turns sharp and cold, prickling your skin like icy needles. Hades lowers his arms. And this is winter. You shiver despite yourself. And to think, I used to complain about mild chills back in the meadows. A faint smile crosses Hades' lips. Without you, Persephone, the balance fails. Your absence brings sleep to the land. Your return breathes life into the earth again. You blink at him, stunned. So, I'm basically Mother Nature's on-off switch. Among modern scholars, there's a theory that your journey underground symbolizes far more than changing seasons. Some believe it reflects the cycles of grief and renewal within every human life. Others see it as a story of personal transformation. A girl who descends into darkness and emerges a woman who holds power in two worlds. The ancient Greeks probably just wanted to explain why wheat refuses to grow in January. But your story grew into something much bigger. Hades looks at you steadily. You are queen below and goddess above. You belong to both realms. You laugh softly. No pressure, huh? He steps closer. Everything blooms and fades by your hand. Every blossom, every frost. You tilt your head, trying to absorb it all. That's terrifying, but also kind of amazing. Hades nods. Very few mortals understand how deeply their lives depend upon yours. Your gaze drifts upward to the dome where tiny lights sparkle like distant stars, spinning slowly as the seasons turn. You think of your mother's laughter, of poppies trembling in sunlit fields, and of these silent halls filled with shadows and secrets. So when I leave, you whisper, winter comes? Hades lowers his eyes, and when you return, life follows. It's still debated among historians whether your myth was mainly about crops or about the human need for hope. The idea that even after darkness, spring will always find its way back. Either way, your story endured because it reminded people that nothing stays buried forever. You sigh. It's a lot of responsibility for someone who used to spend her days picking flowers. Hades' voice is gentle. Perhaps, but you are stronger than you know. You glance at him. Tell that to my mother when she realizes I'm still here. A faint shadow passes over his face, but he doesn't look away. That day will come, but for now, your time here is not yet finished. Above you, the swirling lights glow softly, casting gentle reflections over your face, and somewhere deep inside, you feel a quiet certainty blooming. You are Persephone, daughter of the harvest, queen of shadows, and the hidden pulse of every turning season. The glow of the swirling lights above you begins to fade, leaving the great chamber bathed in a soft twilight. Tiny motes of golden dust drift slowly in the still air, as though the stars themselves have decided to rest for a moment before shining again. Hades stands beside you, silent as ever, though there's something different in the way he watches you now. A quiet gravity, as if he knows this moment matters more than the countless years he's seen pass. You draw a deep breath, feeling the lingering chill of winter melt into a faint warmth that seems to come from somewhere inside your own chest. So, I'm queen now, you say softly, half in wonder, half in disbelief. Not exactly the career path I pictured for myself. Hades tilts his head, shadows shifting across his face. Few queens choose their crowns, Persephone, but they wear them nonetheless. People have long debated whether the Greeks saw you as a helpless victim or a powerful ruler in your own right. Some ancient hymns praise your gentle kindness, while others hint at a fierce queen who commands respect even from the dead. Over the centuries, you became both, a maiden and a monarch, a symbol of innocence and sovereign authority woven into one. You glance down at your hands, half expecting to see them transform somehow, glowing or wreathed in vines. But they look just as they always have. Slender fingers, soft skin that once brushed flower petals under bright skies. Yet deep beneath your skin now hums a quiet strength, coiled like a seed waiting for spring. Among certain mystery cults, worshippers whispered your hidden names. Some called you Despoina, the mistress, believing you held secrets of life, death, and rebirth. Your dual nature made you the perfect goddess of things both visible and hidden. You were, in many ways, the ancient world's keeper of mysteries, and maybe its original queen of spoilers. Hades gestures, and a new path seems to unfurl beneath your feet. Smooth black stone stretches ahead, scattered with tiny flecks of emerald and sapphire that catch the faint glow around you. He walks ahead, and you follow, the soft tap of your sandals echoing like distant rain. The hallway widens until it opens into a vast chamber. The ceiling arches so high it vanishes into a hazy darkness. Along the walls shimmer faint reflections of shifting figures, ghostly dancers spinning silently in unseen breezes. At the center of it all rises a dark marble dais, atop which sits a throne carved from gleaming obsidian. Twisting vines curl across its surface, intertwining with tiny skulls so delicately sculpted they look almost gentle. You freeze at the foot of the dais, unable to look away. Hades stands beside you, his dark robes barely brushing the stone as he inclines his head. This is yours. Your voice comes out faint and incredulous. Excuse me? Some scholars still debate how willingly you accepted your crown. In some myths, you're portrayed as a reluctant captive, longing only for the sunlit fields above. In others, you grow into your power, ruling with measured wisdom and a gaze that sees into every hidden corner of the human soul. Either way, you became a goddess who belonged to both realms, able to walk the boundaries no one else could cross. Hades' voice remains gentle. The underworld is not merely a prison. It requires compassion, balance, and a steady hand. You let out a soft huff. Balance. Right. Nothing says balance like rivers full of souls and eternal night. Hades gives you a long, patient look. And yet, without you, all of this would crumble. A chill prickles along your arms. So you're saying I'm the cosmic glue keeping the afterlife from falling apart. A tiny glint of humor appears in Hades' eyes, among other things. Your gaze drifts to the throne once more. The delicate carvings seem to shimmer under the soft glow, shifting between images of tiny skulls and blooming flowers, as if even the throne itself can't decide whether it belongs to death or life. In a few ancient vase paintings, artists showed you holding a torch and a sheaf of wheat at the same time, a symbol of your dominion over shadows and harvest alike. One rare fragment even depicts you carrying a small chest, hinting at secrets hidden from mortal eyes. You were, in many ways, the keeper of things no one else dared to know. Slowly, you climb the steps toward the throne. Each footstep echoes like ripples across a quiet lake. When you reach the top, you pause, glancing back at Hades. "Are you sure about this?" you ask, your voice shaking just slightly. Hades inclines his head. "You are queen here, Persephone. You alone stand between darkness and renewal." Tentatively, you lower yourself onto the throne. The obsidian feels cool at first, but quickly warms beneath your touch. A faint vibration hums through the stone, as though centuries of stories are murmuring just beneath the surface. You place your hands on the carved arms of the throne. Tiny vines curl around your fingers, almost as if they're welcoming you. A calm settles into your chest, steady and certain, even amid the shadows. "Queen Persephone," Hades says softly, "ruler of the silent lands, mistress of all things hidden." You raise your chin a little. "I still plan on visiting my mom." A flicker of amusement crosses Hades' face, the closest thing you've ever seen to a smile. "And so you shall." Some believe your rule brought gentleness to the underworld. Others say you brought balance and kept restless souls in check. Either way, your throne became a symbol that even in darkness there can be hope, and that life and death are never entirely separate. You gaze out across the silent hall. For the first time, you don't feel trapped. You feel powerful. You feel like someone who belongs in two worlds, carrying secrets and springtime in equal measure. "I'm not sure I'm ready," you admit softly. Hades bows his head. "No one ever is, but still, you are queen." You sit for a moment longer, listening to the distant whispers swirling between the tall marble pillars. Each whisper seems to carry a fragment of a life, a farmer's harvest, a mother's lullaby, a soldier's final breath. And in the hush, you realize that you are part of every one of those stories. Even as queen of the underworld, you are still Demeter's daughter, still Persephone, and both halves of you shine equally bright. You sit upon your throne a moment longer, feeling the hush of the underworld settle softly around you, like velvet curtains drawn close. The quiet hum beneath the stone still thrums through your body, a gentle reminder that this realm now recognizes you as its queen. Hades stands a few steps away, hands folded into the dark folds of his robe. His gaze is steady but distant, as if measuring time in centuries rather than moments. "So, it's time for me to go back?" you ask. your voice breaking the silence like a dropped pebble in a still lake. Hades inclines his head. The world waits for you, Persephone. Spring waits. You let out a slow breath, feeling your chest tighten and release. Your heart seems caught between two beats, unsure which rhythm to follow, the steady hush of this place or the bright pulse of life above. Will I remember all of this when I'm in the sunlight? You ask quietly. Hades tilts his head, a faint shadow flickering across his face. Always, even when you walk among blooming fields, part of you will remain here, just as part of me remains with you. In certain Orphic hymns, it was believed that speaking your name could offer mortals protection and safe passage between realms. Your story wasn't merely about crops. It became a secret code for navigating the fragile boundary between life and death, a gentle promise that even darkness can lead back into the light. Hades extends his hand toward you. You take it, letting him help you rise from the throne. The obsidian seat releases you slowly, humming once more beneath your fingers as you let go. Together, you walk back through the whispering halls. The soft murmur of countless voices fades behind you, replaced by silence, so deep it feels like standing in the calm before a summer storm. You return to the black lake where tiny ripples still glimmer like stars caught beneath its surface. The water remains perfectly still, reflecting faint red and silver sparks that seem to flicker and vanish as quickly as dreams. Hades turns to face you fully. His eyes glow faintly under the soft lights. This is not farewell. It is only the turning of the wheel. Your throat tightens. I know. Historians still debate whether your springtime return was meant as an agricultural metaphor, or whether it spoke to something deeper, the human longing to believe that even the coldest winters will give way to warmth again. For many Greeks, your story offered hope, that loss is never the end, and life always circles back. Hades lifts one hand, and the surface of the lake shivers. A perfect circle opens in its center, revealing a tunnel of pale golden light, winding upward like a spiral staircase. A soft breeze drifts from the opening, carrying the scent of wildflowers, damp soil, and the faint sweetness of spring rain. You stare into the light, blinking away sudden tears. Will you be all right down here? You ask softly. Hades inclines his head. The dead wait for me. The halls will echo, but I will endure, as I always have. There's an obscure version of your story in which Hades occasionally slips above ground during your absence, disguised as a mortal, just to see the living world. It's oddly romantic, and possibly a bit problematic, depending on how many divine rules he's breaking each time. You manage a laugh, wiping your eyes. Tell the shades I said goodbye, and that I'm sorry for all the poppy petals I left scattered everywhere. Hades lowers his chin solemnly. They will understand. A long pause stretches between you, held gently by the still air. Then, without another word, you step forward into the tunnel of light. Warmth wraps around you like a soft blanket. The air hums with gentle vibrations, and your hair lifts slightly, tousled by the scented breeze. Your sandals tread lightly on the spiraling path. Each step seems easier than the one before, as though your body remembers how to rise. Colors unfold around you, soft greens, delicate pinks, flashes of gold. You breathe in deeply, and the scent of blooming wildflowers fills your lungs. At last, you emerge into sunlight so bright that you have to raise your hand to shield your eyes. Blinking rapidly, you look around. A meadow stretches out before you, bursting with crocuses and poppies. The sky arches overhead, a flawless blue. while birds wheel and call in high, sweet voices. A laugh bubbles out of your chest, sudden and uncontrollable. You drop to your knees, fingers sinking into cool grass dotted with petals. Somewhere in the distance you hear a familiar voice calling your name, a note of relief and joy woven into every syllable. Persephone. And for a single perfect moment, you feel whole, both queen and daughter, both shadow and sunlight, a woman with roots in two worlds, carrying secrets and the promise of new life. Because no matter how dark the underworld grows, you will always find your way back to the light. You stand beside Hades in the silent marble hall, feeling the pulse of the underworld thrum faintly through the stone beneath your sandals. The echoes of your new title, Queen of the Underworld, still swirl around your thoughts like drifting petals. Hades glances at you, his dark eyes considering. "There's more I wish to show you," he says, his voice low and calm. Before you can reply, he turns and gestures for you to follow. You walk side by side down a corridor where the walls seem to breathe with shifting shadows. The faint glow of torchlight flickers across carvings of twisting vines and hidden creatures, giving the sense that something alive watches you from every surface. People have long wondered whether the Greeks believed the underworld was a place of rigid order or a shifting landscape of secrets. Some ancient poets described winding tunnels and endless gates. Others imagined a grand palace with rooms as varied as the gods' moods. Perhaps, like most things in Greek mythology, the truth was all of it at once. After several minutes, the hallway widens and you step into a vast cavern. The air grows noticeably cooler, carrying the faint scent of wet stone and iron. Ahead looms a set of colossal gates, towering so high they nearly vanish into darkness above. Crafted from black iron and adorned with swirling patterns of silver inlay, the gates glisten under faint shafts of pale blue light. Intricate scenes decorate their panels. Rivers winding through rocky valleys, fields of asphodel swaying under unseen breezes, and figures half hidden in shadow, reaching out as though to beckon you closer. You stop, staring upward. Those are enormous. Hades stands beside you, his gaze sweeping over the gates. These are the gates of shadows. Beyond them lies the boundary between realms. A chill skims down your spine. You try to sound casual. Right, so it's like a really dramatic front door. A flicker of amusement crosses Hades' face. Something like that. According to some old myths, the gates were guarded day and night to ensure no soul left without permission. But others claimed the gates were meant to protect the world above from what might slip through from below. Either way, they were said to be one of the oldest creations in existence, built long before Zeus ever picked up his first lightning bolt. You take a cautious step forward, craning your neck to examine the carvings. Tiny figures appear among the vines, hidden in corners of the metalwork. Small animals, winding serpents, even delicate flowers with petals that look sharp as glass. "Who made these?" you whisper. Hades lowers his voice. The Cyclopes forged them in the fires of the earth's deepest roots. Their hammers rang for 7 nights and 7 days. There's a rumor that the gates sing softly when touched, though only certain ears can hear it. A faint music, like distant bells underwater. No one knows for certain whether it's a warning or a welcome. You stretch out your hand, hesitating an inch from the cool black iron. Is it safe? Hades tilts his head. Define safe. You drop your hand quickly. Good point. Some historians believe that the gates of the underworld represented psychological boundaries, the moment where a person left behind the world they knew, and entered mystery and transformation. Others think they were a literal threshold, meant to remind mortals that some places simply weren't meant to be crossed. As you stand staring up at the gates, you hear a low, rumbling growl. You freeze, your fingers tightening around the folds of your dress. Was that thunder? You whisper. Hades merely raises one brow. No. From the shadows beside the gates, a shape lumbers forward. At first, you see only glints of yellow eyes, then flashes of white teeth. Then the creature steps into the light, and you find yourself face to face with Cerberus. 3 massive heads rise above a broad, muscled chest. Dark fur ripples like black silk over corded muscle. Each head has a slightly different expression. One snarls faintly, another seems to regard you with mild curiosity, and the third looks almost sleepy. Okay, so that's a big dog, you manage to say, your voice pitched a little higher than usual. Hades inclines his head. He is loyal and surprisingly fond of sweet fruits. In certain vase paintings, artists sometimes depicted Cerberus with serpent tails or a mane of writhing snakes. But others showed him simply as an enormous hound, fiercely protective of the underworld gates, and apparently of you now. Cerberus sniffs the air around you, the center head giving a cautious huff. You stand utterly still, half expecting to be devoured. But instead, the sleepy head lets out a soft yawn, and the curious one tilts to the side as if asking you a silent question. Nice doggy? You say tentatively. A faint smile tugs at the corner of Hades' mouth. He approves. You blink. He does? He only growls at those who do not belong, Hades explains. You, Persephone, belong to both worlds. Some ancient poets claimed that Cerberus would wag his tail for those he welcomed, but for everyone else, his teeth were a different story entirely. Cerberus gives another snuffling sniff, then plunks all 3 heads down onto his paws, sprawling across the floor like an oversized puppy. Well, that's slightly less terrifying, you murmur. Hades gestures gently toward the gates. Cerberus guards this threshold, but he also keeps secrets. There is much he has witnessed over countless ages. You glance at the great hound, feeling your heartbeat finally start to settle. You realize there's something almost comforting in his presence, a silent protector watching over a realm most mortals would fear to enter. You take one last look up at the gates towering above you, their silver inlays glinting like stars caught in an endless night. A part of you wonders what might lie beyond, waiting in the further reaches of shadow. But another part of you knows that, for now, you have much more to see within these halls, and that your journey through the underworld is only beginning. Cerberus lies sprawled across the floor, like an enormous heap of black fur and muscle, his 3 heads shifting occasionally as each one decides whether to nap, sniff the air, or continue eyeing you with curiosity. You're still standing close to the towering gates, trying to decide if you should inch away or stay perfectly still. So he's just going to stay there? You ask Hades in a low voice. Hades glances at Cerberus, who responds with a soft, low whine that reverberates through the cavern like distant thunder. He's simply waiting, Hades replies calmly. He's always listening. Ancient poets sometimes wrote that Cerberus could hear sounds even from the surface world. Songs carried by the wind, the cry of a newborn baby, or the rustle of poppies under the sun. It's said he knew more secrets than any other creature in the underworld, though whether he understood them was another matter entirely. You fold your arms. Well, does he always growl at visitors? Hades lifts one hand and makes a faint gesture. He can be soothed, By what? Treats? A glimmer of humor appears in Hades' eyes. By music. Before you can question him further, Hades reaches beneath his robe and withdraws a small, gleaming instrument, a golden lyre, its delicate strings shimmering under the pale glow of the cavern lights. You blink. Wait, you play music? Hades raises a brow. Did you think ruling the dead leaves no time for hobbies? It's true that some lesser-known myths hinted at Hades possessing skills besides governance. A few scattered fragments of poetry suggest he was once considered the patron of hidden treasures beneath the earth, including music. It's one of those details that rarely made it into the grand tales, probably because the bards thought it less dramatic than thunderbolts or tridents. Hades lightly touches the strings, and a soft melody unfurls into the cavern air. The sound is gentle, rolling like waves lapping a distant shore. The notes shimmer and twist, echoing off the high stone walls. Cerberus stirs, 3 sets of ears flicking upright. You watch, astonished, as the snarling head's lips relax. The sleepy head's eyes blink open with sudden alertness, and the curious head edges closer, as though hoping for a front row seat. You've got to be kidding me, you whisper. Hades continues to pluck at the lyre, the music winding through the cavern like a silver ribbon. A faint smile touches his lips. He prefers gentle melodies. Some believed music held power over even the fiercest creatures of myth. In stories of Orpheus, his songs calmed Cerberus and even stilled the rivers of the underworld. The Greeks seemed convinced that, given the right tune, even monsters would pause to listen. Slowly, Cerberus begins to sway. The center head lets out a low rumble that sounds suspiciously like a pleased purr. The right head lowers itself onto his paws, eyes half-lidded. The left head leans toward Hades, ears perked attentively. I can't believe this, you murmur. He's basically a giant dog getting a lullaby. Hades lowers the lyre briefly. Cerberus guards the gates, but he also craves beauty. Even the fiercest creatures are not immune to music. You peer at the massive hound. So, if I ever get in trouble, I should just sing to him. A shadow of a laugh flickers across Hades' face. Perhaps, though your mother might object to you carrying a lyre into the fields. You roll your eyes. Right. She'd accuse me of wasting time on mortal nonsense. There's a legend that Cerberus once fell asleep so deeply to Orpheus's music that he snored for 3 days straight, causing utter chaos at the gates as shades wandered around unsupervised. It's said Hades wasn't pleased about that incident, though some poets claim he secretly found it amusing. The song grows softer, slowing like waves drawing back from a quiet shore. Cerberus gives a final contented sigh, then carefully lowers all 3 heads onto his massive paws, eyes drooping shut. Hades glances at you. He will sleep now. You're safe to pass. You stare at Cerberus, still marveling at how a beast with 3 heads and rows of sharp teeth can look so utterly peaceful. Well, that's unexpectedly adorable, you admit. Hades tucks the lyre away beneath his robes. The underworld is full of surprises, Persephone. You shake your head in disbelief. So you're telling me the great guardian of the gates can be bribed with a gentle tune? Not bribed, Hades says evenly. Appeased. Some historians suggest that tales of Cerberus being soothed by music reflect a deeper truth, that even the darkest places have soft edges, and that beauty can reach into the deepest shadows to find quiet peace. You look at Hades, half smiling. I guess being queen of the underworld means I'd better start practicing my scales. Hades inclines his head. I can provide lessons. You blink. You teach music. Among other things, he says, eyes twinkling faintly. You laugh despite yourself. And as Cerberus settles into soft, rhythmic breathing, you realize that perhaps the underworld isn't just a place of shadows and silence. Maybe, in its hidden corners, it holds quiet moments of unexpected gentleness, and even a melody or two. Cerberus lies snoring gently behind you, the cavern echoing with the sound of 3 deep, synchronized breaths. It's oddly comforting, like distant waves rolling against a quiet shore. Hades gestures for you to follow him once more. You glance over your shoulder at the massive gates of shadows, then turn your steps into a new passageway lined with gleaming black marble. The corridor gradually widens into an enormous chamber lit by a soft, eerie glow that seems to come from nowhere. The floor sparkles as though dusted with powdered stars. You pause on the threshold, taking in the scene before you. 3 imposing thrones sit on a raised dais at the far end of the chamber. Each throne is carved from a different stone. One of pure white marble, veined with gold, one of deep green serpentine, and one of dark basalt streaked with silver. Upon these thrones sit 3 figures, each radiating an air of stern authority, and rather unexpectedly mild exasperation. Hades murmurs beside you, "These are the judges of mortal souls." You glance up at him, raising your eyebrows. They look grumpy. "Constant debate will do that," Hades replies dryly. Some ancient sources claim that Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus were appointed by Zeus himself to judge the souls of the dead, assigning each mortal to their proper place, Elysium, Asphodel, or Tartarus. Others believe they simply took over the job because nobody else wanted the responsibility. The judge in the marble throne leans forward. His hair is snowy white, and his gaze sharp as a knife's edge. "Hades, you're late." Hades lifts a brow. "Am I?" Rhadamanthus, seated on the serpentine throne, waves a dismissive hand. "Time is meaningless down here, Minos. Stop acting like we have a schedule." Aeacus, on the basalt throne, crosses his arms. "Tell that to the queue of souls waiting outside. Some of them have been here since sunrise." Minos glances at you, his eyes narrowing. "And who is this?" You straighten under his stare. Persephone?" Minos leans back slowly, eyes widening. "Ah, the new queen." Rhadamanthus grins. "Delighted to finally meet you. We were beginning to think you were a rumor." Aeacus gives you a polite nod. "Welcome. We apologize for the clutter. Things tend to pile up in the judgment process." You glance around, realizing that scattered throughout the chamber are piles of scrolls, clay tablets, and the occasional papyrus sheet. Some stacks teeter dangerously, threatening to collapse at any moment. "You keep records?" you ask, stunned. Hades gestures toward the mess. "Every soul's deeds must be accounted for. Every lie, every kindness, every loaf of bread stolen or shared." Rhadamanthus holds up a scroll and squints at it. This one claims he only stole bread to feed his goats. Aeacus groans. "The goats again. Everyone blames the goats." Some historians believe the meticulous underworld records reflected the Greeks' deep belief in justice, that even death could not erase a person's actions. Others think it simply mirrored human anxiety about bureaucracy and paperwork, a fear older than any empire. Minos fixes you with a piercing stare. "So, Queen Persephone, do you wish to preside over a trial?" Your mouth goes dry. What?" Aeacus waves a dismissive hand. Just a simple one, to observe. Before you can object, Rhadamanthus claps his hands. A faint shimmer ripples through the air. A shade emerges from the shadows, translucent and faintly glowing, its form wavering like heat rising off stone. The shade bows. I stand before the judges. Minos clears his throat. State your name and your deeds. The shade shuffles awkwardly. I am Diodoros. I, borrowed a neighbor's olive oil, frequently, without asking. Aeacus leans forward. How frequently? The shade mutters. Every day, for 20 years. Rhadamanthus pinches the bridge of his nose. Good grief. You stare, stunned. This is a crime worthy of judgment? Hades murmurs beside you. In some villages, olive oil is serious business. There's a long debate among the judges involving terms like intent, community trust, and the possibility of goat involvement. You half expect someone to produce a chart. Finally, Minos declares, we shall assign Diodoros to the fields of Asphodel, neither reward nor punishment. He may wander, contemplating the virtues of honesty. The shade bows again and drifts away, muttering something about preferring butter anyway. You blink at Hades. Is it always like this? Hades sighs faintly. Often. Some versions of the myth say that the judges ruled with perfect fairness. Others insist they sometimes grew bored and argued for hours over trivial cases just to amuse themselves. Perhaps both are true. Rhadamanthus leans forward, resting his chin on his hand. Well, Queen Persephone, any questions? You glance around the chamber. Do you ever get tired of all this judging? Aeacus huffs. Of course, but justice never sleeps. Minos rubs his temples, though sometimes we wish it would. Rhadamanthus chuckles. If only someone would invent coffee for the underworld. You can't help it. You laugh. And for a brief moment, the stern chamber of judgment feels almost human. A place not only of decisions and fates, but also of tired officials, petty arguments, and the occasional olive oil scandal. You leave the chamber of the judges with a head full of questions and a newfound respect for the weight of olive oil theft. Hades walks beside you, silent for a while, as though giving you time to process it all. Eventually, he leads you down a sloping corridor. The air grows cooler and carries a faint mineral tang. You begin to hear the sound of water lapping gently against stone. At the end of the tunnel, the walls widen into a vast underground riverbank. Black water glides slowly past, smooth as polished glass. Tiny ripples catch faint glimmers of pale green light. Standing at the water's edge is a tall, thin figure draped in a dark cloak, his face half hidden under a battered hood. A long wooden pole rests in one bony hand. The figure lifts his head slightly. Lord Hades. Hades nods. Charon. You blink. Wait, this is the boatman. The figure turns to you. His eyes are pale as river stones, glinting faintly in the dim light. Persephone, he says in a voice dry as parchment. Queen of both worlds, welcome. Some ancient Greeks believed Charon was grim and terrifying, but others whispered that beneath his gruff exterior, he was surprisingly talkative, especially if given a willing ear. Certain poets even joked that Charon might have known more gossip than any mortal woman in the markets of Athens. Charon gives you a polite nod. Care for a ride? You hesitate. Is it safe? Charon snorts softly. Safer than trying to swim. The Styx is cold enough to freeze secrets out of your bones. You edge closer to the river. The water looks so dark it's almost blue-black, and it flows silently, as if carrying centuries of hushed conversations. There's really no bottom to it, is there? You murmur. Karen tilts his head. Some say it has a floor paved with black pearls. Others believe it goes straight through the earth and comes out the other side. I've been rowing it for ages, and even I'm not sure. Hades steps forward and gestures toward a long, narrow boat moored at the edge. Its wooden sides gleam with a faint sheen of oil, as though freshly polished. Tiny silver runes are etched into the bow. Karen motions for you to step aboard. You look at Hades warily. You're coming too, right? A rare smile touches the corners of Hades' mouth. Of course. You step into the boat, the wooden floor creaking faintly beneath your sandals. Karen pushes off from the stone bank with his pole, and the boat glides smoothly into the current. Ripples fan outward in gentle rings. The only sounds are the quiet splash of water against the hull and the occasional hollow thud as Karen's pole touches some unseen surface far below. You glance around. So, how many people have you ferried over the years? Karen lets out a soft huff. Lost count after the first million. There's an obscure legend that Charon once tried to keep a journal of every passenger he ferried, but gave up when he ran out of papyrus and patience. Charon continues, his voice almost conversational. Some folks are silent the entire ride. Others talk my ears off. One man tried to sell me olive oil the whole way across. You grin. Olive oil again. Always olive oil, Charon mutters. I've decided mortals are obsessed. Hades glances at you. Mortals cling to small comforts, even in death. Charon leans closer, lowering his voice. Want to hear the strangest thing I ever ferried? You blink. Strangest thing. Once, Charon says, voice dropping dramatically. Someone sent me a goat, alive, tied up, bleating the whole way across. Your eyes widen. Why? Charon shrugs. Apparently, the owner thought the goat could negotiate a lighter sentence in the afterlife. Or maybe they just wanted to annoy the judges. You burst out laughing, nearly tipping the boat sideways. Hades catches your arm. Careful. You wipe tears of laughter from your eyes. So, did the goat get judged? Charon's lips twitch. Aercus refused to see it. Minos tried. Rhadamanthus demanded an interpreter. Some scholars have speculated that tales of Charon's ferry were meant not only to scare mortals into burying their dead properly, but also to remind people that even the afterlife might have its share of absurdities. The boat glides smoothly around a slow bend in the river. You look out over the water and see faint lights glowing beneath the surface, like distant stars drifting in an endless night. Charon taps his pole on the side of the boat. Nearly there. Nearly where, you ask. He doesn't answer, just gives you a cryptic look from under his hood. Hades leans closer. Charon likes to keep a bit of mystery. It makes the ride more interesting. You roll your eyes. Wonderful. Another cryptic man in my life. Charon snorts softly. Consider it part of the underworld experience. As the boat glides forward, you find yourself wondering what other secrets might lie hidden in these black waters, and whether even the ferryman himself knows how deep the river truly runs. The boat slows as it nears a gentle curve in the river. Charon steers it toward a landing of pale stone, where soft mist drifts lazily across the surface. You can't quite see where the stone ends and the fog begins. It all seems to merge into a silver haze. Charon taps the side of the boat. End of the line, for now. Hades steps out first, extending his hand to help you. You grasp it gratefully and step onto solid ground, feeling the cool marble beneath your sandals. A soft breeze brushes past you, carrying the faint scent of dry grass and something subtly floral, like dried lavender mixed with distant rain. Hades murmurs, "Welcome to the fields of asphodel." You glance around, your eyes slowly adjusting to the muted glow. Endless fields stretch out in every direction, covered in pale, silvery flowers that sway in the invisible currents of air. The blossoms are delicate, each shaped like a small star, their petals trembling as though whispering secrets to one another. "So, this is where people end up?" you ask softly. Hades nods. "For many, yes. Those who led neither heroic nor wicked lives. It's a place of quiet memory. Some ancient Greeks believed the fields of asphodel were neither punishment nor reward, a realm of gentle neutrality where souls drifted endlessly in soft twilight. The idea was strangely comforting. Not all deeds demanded either torment or glory. Some simply faded into gentle recollection. As you walk beside Hades, you notice shapes moving among the flowers. Translucent figures drift through the blossoms, their outlines shimmering like moonlight on water. Some souls pause as you pass, heads tilting as though recognizing you. Others wander on, murmuring quietly to themselves. You step closer to a shade, a woman wearing the faint shimmer of an ancient peplos dress. Her hair flows around her shoulders like silver mist. "Hello," you venture gently. The woman lifts her face. "I remember olives," she whispers. "So many olives, and the sound of rain on clay rooftops." Then she drifts away, the asphodel blossoms parting soundlessly to let her pass. You turn to Hades, eyes wide. "They just wander around thinking about olives?" Hades' mouth twitches, among other things. There's a curious belief that souls in asphodel forget much of their mortal lives, yet retain fragments, flashes of smells, tastes, or moments that made them happiest. It's as though only the gentlest pieces of life cling to them like faint perfume. Further along, you see a man crouched amid the blossoms, picking handfuls of petals and letting them fall through his fingers. "My donkey always found the best figs," he murmurs. "He was cleverer than my brother." You stifle a laugh, pressing your fingers to your lips. Do they stay like this forever? Hades considers. Time means little here. Some remain content for centuries. Others eventually drift toward the banks of Lethe to forget everything completely. The mention of Lethe sends a faint chill along your spine. The river of forgetfulness. You wonder how many souls have chosen to erase their memories, and how many have stayed, clutching fragments of who they once were. A soft chorus of humming rises around you. You pause, straining to hear. "What's that sound?" you whisper. Hades tilts his head. The voices of the asphodel. Some say the flowers absorb mortal memories, singing them back in fragments when the wind is right. You blink. Flowers, singing memories. In the underworld, nothing is impossible, Hades says calmly. You listen harder. Faint words emerge from the breeze. Laughter, the clink of pottery, the rustle of wheat fields, and snippets of ancient songs sung by women mending grain in stone mortars. It's both beautiful and haunting, like echoes of life floating just out of reach. A man wanders past you, his form flickering faintly. "Did I ever finish that poem about the moon?" he murmurs. Then he drifts away again, leaving a swirl of silver petals in his wake. You look at Hades, eyes wide. It's so peaceful, but also a little sad. Hades inclines his head. That is the nature of asphodel, gentle sorrow, gentle memory. Some historians argue that the Greeks invented the fields of asphodel as a comfort, an assurance that most people, neither heroes nor villains, would find themselves somewhere calm and undisturbed. Others believe it was a reminder that the majority of life, like most mortals, passes in quiet, unnoticed simplicity. You watch as the souls move among the blossoms, each one gently lost in their own reveries. Part of you aches for them. Another part feels strangely soothed. "It's beautiful here," you say softly. "It is yours to watch over," Hades reminds you gently. You stand amidst the endless silver fields, the flowers rippling around your knees, feeling the weight and grace of your title settle a little more firmly upon your shoulders, and for the first time, you begin to understand that even the quietest places hold secrets worth guarding. You leave the soft silver glow of the fields of asphodel behind, your steps echoing softly as you follow Hades along a narrow passageway that seems to spiral downward into deeper shadows. The air grows colder as you descend, carrying a faint metallic tang that makes you shiver despite the layers of your flowing gown. The stone beneath your feet changes from pale marble to darker basalt, rougher and riddled with tiny fissures that glow faintly red, as though tiny veins of fire pulse far below the surface. Hades glances at you. "I should show you Tartarus, at least the edge of it." You blink. "The edge?" "Just the edge," he repeats firmly. "No further." Tartarus. Even the name sounds like a drumbeat echoing in the hollows of your ribs. It's said to be the deepest pit of the underworld, a realm of punishment reserved for the worst criminals, both mortal and divine. Yet others whispered it was also a prison for forces too dangerous even for the gods. Your sandals slide slightly on loose gravel as you round a bend. The passage opens into a vast cavern. A wave of heat rolls toward you, tinged with the sharp smell of brimstone. Far below, a deep chasm splits the earth, glowing with fiery veins that weave like molten rivers. Sparks drift upward, floating lazily through the cavern air. Hades gestures to the brink of the abyss. "Behold, Tartarus." You peer cautiously over the edge. It's an endless void of crimson light and shifting shadows. The walls plunge downward, impossibly steep, carved with strange runes that flicker in and out of sight. "So, people actually go down there?" you ask. Hades folds his arms. "Only those who deserve it, and even they rarely stay quiet about it." Some ancient poets describe Tartarus as vast as the distance between earth and sky, so deep that an anvil dropped from heaven would fall for 9 days before reaching its floor. Others imagined it as a series of caverns where the guilty endlessly repeat the same punishments, a place of cosmic irony rather than simple torture. You squint into the reddish gloom. Somewhere far below, you catch glimpses of movement, silhouettes shifting against glowing walls. "Are those people?" you whisper. "Some," Hades says mildly. "Some are titans. Some are mortals who tried to trick the gods. Others, well, it's complicated." A faint shout echoes up from the depths. "Tell Zeus I'm still mad about the liver thing." You jerk your head toward Hades. "What was that?" He sighs. "Prometheus," he complains, frequently. In certain stories, Prometheus was bound in Tartarus, his liver devoured daily by an eagle as punishment for stealing fire for humanity. But some ancient comic poets insisted that, after a few centuries, he simply started yelling witty insults at any gods passing by. Another voice wafts upward, shrill and petulant. "I demand a retrial. My goats were innocent." Hades pinches the bridge of his nose. And that is Polyxenos, still convinced his goats committed all his crimes. You blink. So Tartarus is noisy? Hades raises an eyebrow, mildly. Some historians argue that Tartarus was not pure horror, but also carried elements of cosmic bureaucracy, endless trials, appeals, and eternal paperwork. Punishment in Greek thought often came wrapped in ironic twists rather than simple suffering. You listen as echoes of arguments float upward. I only borrowed the chariot. No one warned me that harpies were included. If I have to push this rock one more time, I swear. Hades murmurs. Sisyphus. He's become creative in his complaints. A faint smile creeps across your face. So the worst part of Tartarus might actually be the noise. Hades gives a dry chuckle. A fair assessment. You glance again at the chasm, watching tiny sparks dance through the hot updrafts. There's a strange beauty to it all. The molten glow, the runes etched in shifting walls, the endless voices rising and falling like some chaotic symphony. It's not what I imagined, you admit. Less screaming, more commentary. Hades inclines his head. Pain and humor often walk together. Some scholars believe tales of Tartarus served as moral lessons, warning mortals of cosmic consequences for hubris or treachery. Others suggest it simply reflected human anxieties about justice and the possibility that even punishment might become absurd over eternity. You step back from the ledge, feeling the heat recede as you retreat into cooler shadows. Let's not visit further down, you say firmly. I've heard enough goat defense arguments for one eternity. Hades smirks faintly. Agreed. And with one last glance into the fiery depths, you turn away, leaving Tartarus and its endless echoes behind. You walk beside Hades along the winding corridor that leads away from the simmering heat of Tartarus. As you climb back toward gentler darkness, the air cools again, scented faintly with something sharp and herbal, like sage burned on a midnight breeze. At first, you think it's only your imagination, but then you notice a flicker of pale blue light moving steadily ahead of you. Hades slows his steps. She's here. You glance up. Who? Before he can answer, the blue glow swells brighter, illuminating the walls with a soft shimmer. A woman steps out from the shadows, her long robes fluttering as if stirred by invisible wind. In one hand, she carries a lantern carved from bone, glowing with an unearthly flame that flickers without heat. Her eyes gleam like twin coals, sharp and watchful. Hecate, goddess of crossroads, witchcraft, and all things hidden. She studies you without blinking, her expression calm and unreadable. Persephone, she says, her voice low as dusk itself. I was wondering when you'd find your way here. You swallow. Hello. Hecate tilts her head, and for a moment, you think she might smile. But it's hard to tell with a goddess whose moods shift like tides. Hades inclines his head in greeting. She has much to learn. I should hope so, Hecate murmurs. She lifts the lantern a little higher. Walk with me. You glance nervously at Hades, but he only gestures for you to follow her. Hecate turns without another word, leading you down a side corridor where the darkness grows thicker, more velvety, as though you're stepping into the folds of a night that never ends. The lantern's pale flame casts shifting patterns on the walls, strange symbols, twisting runes, and fragments of scenes that vanish if you stare too long. What is this place? You ask softly. Hecate doesn't look back. A crossroads. Many roads meet here. Paths of the living, the dead, and those in between. Some believed Hecate moved freely among all realms, able to slip from Olympus to Earth to Underworld without ever asking permission. She was the torchbearer in every tale, guiding souls, midwives, and wanderers alike. You follow her deeper into the corridor. The darkness thickens, but the lantern's light seems to push it back in a small, steady circle. "Why did you want to see me?" you ask. Hecate finally stops and turns to face you fully. Because you stand between things. You are alive and not alive, queen and daughter, seed and harvest. You need to understand what that means. A shiver prickles your skin. "I'm trying," you say honestly. Her gaze softens, just a fraction. "It's not something you learn in a day." She raises the lantern. The flame inside swirls into a delicate pattern, 3 interlocking circles that pulse in time with your heartbeat. "This is your nature," she murmurs. "Cycles within cycles, never only one thing." Some ancient cults believed Hecate taught Persephone the secrets of her power, the way to command growth and decay, to speak to shades, to walk through darkness unafraid. In older hymns, she was called the first and last light, a guide for those who had nowhere else to turn. You stare at the lantern, mesmerized by the shifting shapes. "Is this magic?" you whisper. Hecate lifts one eyebrow. "All things are magic, if you look closely enough." She lowers the lantern, and the flame steadies into a calm glow. "Remember this," she says. "You are not only what the world calls you. You are what you choose to become." You swallow. "That sounds easier than it is." Hecate almost smiles. "Everything worth doing is." She reaches out and, to your surprise, brushes her fingertips lightly across your cheek. The touch is cool and somehow grounding, like stepping barefoot on damp earth. "When you walk the upper world again," she murmurs, "look for my lantern. In crossroads and doorways, you'll always find your way back." You nod slowly. "Thank you." Hecate steps back, the blue glow around her softening. "There is nothing to thank me for. This is simply what I am." Some scholars believed that invoking Hecate at crossroads was a way to honor the hidden forces shaping every life. Others thought it was a reminder. No matter how lost you felt, there was always a light waiting somewhere in the darkness. The flame inside the lantern flares once, brighter than before, then settles again. Hecate inclines her head. "Farewell, Persephone." Before you can speak, she steps backward, and the darkness folds around her like a closing curtain. You stand in the silent corridor, heart beating fast. And though the shadows seem deeper without her lantern, you realize you feel steadier somehow, as if a small, hidden light has settled quietly inside you, waiting for the moment you need it most. You stand for a moment longer in the empty corridor, the echoes of Hecate's lantern glow still flickering in your mind. Then Hades steps closer, his dark robes whispering across the stone. "There's someone else you should meet," he says softly. You blink. "Someone else?" He nods once. "A few old friends, and occasional headaches." He gestures for you to follow. You walk beside him through a high archway carved with scenes of battles, ships with sails unfurled, and lions roaring at the edges of marble panels. The corridor opens into a vast hall. Shadows drift among towering pillars, and the air buzzes faintly with energy, as though the space itself hums with the memory of legends. And then you see them. Figures begin to emerge from the gloom, shapes that shimmer like heat haze. Each one carries a faint glow, as if lit from within. A man steps forward first, his form tall and noble. His eyes are deep pools of sorrow, and a delicate lyre hangs at his side. You stare. Is that Orpheus? Orpheus inclines his head. Greetings, Queen Persephone. Hades murmurs beside you. He's persistent. Orpheus lets out a dramatic sigh. I still believe she might come back to me, one day. Some ancient poets insisted Orpheus never truly left the underworld in spirit, even if his body returned to the world above. His songs were said to carry traces of its shadows, notes woven through with grief and longing. You give him a gentle smile. I hope you find peace someday. He places a hand over his heart. Until then, I compose. He drifts away, strumming a soft tune on his lyre, each note echoing like water drops in a cavern. Another figure approaches, shoulders broad, hair falling in unruly locks around his face. His expression flickers between pride and a faint exasperation. Achilles, Hades murmurs. Achilles crosses his arms. I still think I should have been immortal, entirely immortal. Hades raises an eyebrow. We've discussed this. Achilles waves a dismissive hand. I'm just saying, heel vulnerability is highly impractical. Some ancient storytellers claimed Achilles roamed the underworld half in brooding silence, half in search of someone new to spar with. Others painted him as surprisingly chatty, eager to recount tales of the Trojan War to anyone willing or unwilling to listen. You try not to giggle. I'm sorry about the heel thing. Achilles sighs. It's fine. Everyone knows now. A faintly luminous figure hovers at your elbow next. He's smaller than the others, with clever eyes and a faint grin. Sisyphus, Hades intones wearily. Sisyphus bows low. Your Majesty. You eye him cautiously. Are you supposed to be somewhere right now? Sisyphus shrugs. Technically, yes, but I figured one lap around the boulder could wait. Some philosophers believe Sisyphus represented the endless struggle of human existence, but certain poets thought he was simply the ultimate trickster, one who found humor even in eternal punishment. Hades crosses his arms. You'll have to go back eventually. Sisyphus smirks. Define eventually. He winks at you, then drifts off, whistling a tune suspiciously similar to the rhythm of a rolling rock. A fourth figure approaches, his skin bronzed, his shoulders wrapped in a lion's pelt. Hades gives you a resigned look. Heracles. Heracles grins. Hey there, Queen P. Want to hear how I wrestled Cerberus? Hades mutters under his breath. Not again. Heracles barrels on. So there I was in the dark, and Cerberus lunged at me with all three heads. Hades clears his throat sharply. Another time, Heracles. Heracles looks crestfallen, but it's such a good story. You try not to laugh. I'm sure it is, really. Some historians note that heroes in Greek myths were often given special status in the underworld, able to move freely and keep company with the gods. Others think the Greeks simply liked imagining that their legendary figures never truly vanished, remaining available for new stories and new audiences. As the heroes drift away, you're left standing beside Hades in the vast, echoing hall. They're quite the group, you murmur. Hades exhales softly. Imagine spending eternity listening to them argue over who was more heroic. You grin. I guess every realm has its celebrities. Hades lifts a brow. Here, they're mostly unpaid interns with dramatic backstories. A ripple of laughter bubbles up in your chest. Well, at least they keep things interesting. Hades glances at you with a faint curve of his lips. Indeed, even the underworld needs entertainment. You look around once more, watching as the faint glows fade into the shadows. Part of you wonders how many other famous names still wander these halls, waiting to tell their stories again. And you realize that even here, in the depths of the earth, legends continue to breathe, carried forward by memory and by those who dare to listen. After leaving the Hall of Heroes, you walk beside Hades down another corridor that seems to twist and bend, as though it's being gently stirred by unseen currents. The walls gradually shift from smooth marble to rougher stone, etched with countless tiny symbols that glimmer faintly like mica under low light. The air grows warmer again, carrying a strange medley of scents: sweet spices, cool river water, something faintly metallic, and a hint of smoke. You wrinkle your nose. Where are we going now? Hades glances at you. To one of my favorite places. You blink. You have a favorite place? He inclines his head. Even the underworld has its pleasures. Ahead, the corridor widens, and you step out onto a broad terrace overlooking a scene that makes you stop in your tracks. A vast underground cavern stretches out before you, lit by countless floating lanterns that drift lazily through the air like soft, golden fireflies. Beneath their glow bustles a sprawling market. Stalls made of dark wood and carved bone stand side by side, draped in silks dyed in deep blues, crimsons, and shimmering greens. Crowds of shades wander between the stalls, translucent forms gliding as they examine wares, barter in hushed tones, and exchange faint, shimmering coins. Is this a marketplace? You whisper. Hades smiles faintly. The underworld market. Even the dead desire things. Some poets claimed that souls retained faint echoes of mortal cravings, a favorite scent, a taste, the glimmer of something beautiful. And in the underworld, these longings wove themselves into commerce, albeit a commerce of shadows and memories. You step forward, curiosity sparking through your veins. The first stall you pass displays small glass bottles filled with swirling, luminous vapors. A shade behind the counter gestures to you, whispering in a soft, echoing voice. Dream fragments, best quality, last longer than mortal sleep. You blink. Dream fragments. Hades murmurs beside you. Some shades like to remember what dreaming felt like. Another stall nearby sells delicate pouches of shimmering dust labeled memory dust, sweet moments only. Shades drift by, collecting small pinches of the dust in their spectral hands, pressing it gently to their chests before fading into the crowd. A shade at the next stall calls out, rare scents from mortal feasts, roasted figs, fresh honey cakes. You stifle a laugh. Honey cakes? Hades nods gravely. Food leaves powerful memories. Some historians believe that offerings left at graves, food, flowers, trinkets, weren't merely symbolic, but were thought to reach the dead in mysterious ways. Perhaps the underworld market grew from that tradition, transforming offerings into currency for souls craving a connection to life above. Further along, you see a table piled high with beautiful objects, necklaces carved from moonstone, rings shaped like coiling serpents, slender daggers etched with tiny scenes of harvest and rain. A shade leans closer. Trade you this dagger for a memory of your favorite sunrise. You hesitate, glancing at Hades. My sunrise? Hades says quietly, some goods here cost memories. The price can be high. A hush falls over the nearby crowd as a small group gathers around a stall displaying thin, glowing sheets of parchment. The stallkeeper chants softly, secrets for sale, forgotten truths, words lost in mortal fires. You edge closer. Secrets? Hades lowers his voice. Histories burned from libraries, names stricken from records, secrets mortals tried to bury. Your skin prickles. People buy those. Sometimes, Hades murmurs, knowledge is a powerful hunger. You walk slowly past another booth, where a shade carefully arranges tiny glass vials labeled Tears of Lovers. The liquid inside shimmers silver and blue under the lanterns. You whisper, "That's sad," or comforting, Hades says, for those who want to remember love. Some scholars argue that stories of underworld commerce reflected deep human truths. Even in death, people yearn for connection, beauty, and meaning. Others think the Greeks simply liked imagining that the afterlife was run much like any busy Athenian marketplace. As you wander, a soft tune drifts through the cavern, played on an unseen instrument. Shades pause in their bargaining to sway gently to the music. You turn to Hades. "Do you ever buy anything?" He looks faintly amused. "On occasion." What would the king of the underworld possibly want from a market? Hades lifts a shoulder in a quiet shrug. A new tune, a forgotten poem, the scent of a thunderstorm over olive groves. You smile despite yourself. "You're more sentimental than I expected." Hades glances down at you, eyes glinting faintly. Even kings carry memories they wish to keep close. You look back out over the shimmering stalls, the drifting lanterns, and the gentle murmur of countless voices. And for a moment, you forget entirely that this place lies beneath the earth, hidden from the living world. Instead, it feels simply alive, a bustling testament that even in the realm of shadows, souls still long for the small, shining things that made life sweet. You linger a moment longer at the edge of the underworld market, watching the shades drift among stalls shimmering with soft lantern light. Then Hades touches your elbow gently. "There's one more place I wish you to see." You blink. "More secrets?" He gives a faint nod. "A secret and a gift." He leads you away from the bustle, deeper into a passage where the lanterns fade behind you. The air grows cooler, sweeter somehow, carrying a delicate scent like damp soil after rain. You walk in silence, your footsteps echoing on smooth stone. Soon, the corridor opens into a hidden chamber, so unexpected that you draw in your breath and simply stare. A garden blooms in perfect quiet, beneath an arched ceiling of glittering stone. Pale vines coil upward along the walls, glowing faintly like threads of moonlight. Silver and white flowers unfurl their petals toward the dark vault above, each bloom shimmering as though dusted with frost. Small rivulets of crystal clear water wind between beds of luminous moss, filling the air with a gentle, rippling music. You step forward, almost afraid to disturb the hush. "Hades, this is beautiful." He watches you, shadows shifting gently across his face. "Few know it exists. I keep it hidden." Some whispered myths spoke of secret groves in the underworld, gardens tended by Persephone herself, where flowers of pure silver grew under eternal twilight. In these tales, she became not only queen of the dead, but also a silent gardener of forgotten wonders. You kneel beside a cluster of flowers shaped like tiny stars. Their petals glow softly under your fingers, cool as starlight. "What are these?" you murmur. Hades crouches beside you. They have no name among mortals. They bloom only in darkness, and they thrive because of you. You glance at him, startled. "Because of me?" Your presence here, Hades says quietly, allows life to grow, even in shadows. A warmth blooms in your chest, equal parts wonder and disbelief. Some scholars believe the Greeks created these stories to reconcile Persephone's two identities, flower maiden above ground, shadow queen below. The hidden gardens became symbols of balance, beauty flourishing even in darkness, proof that life and death were never truly separate. You wander further among the glowing blooms. Tiny petals brush against your dress as if reaching for you. Delicate ferns unfurl in your path, revealing subtle sparks of blue light flickering like tiny stars caught in the leaves. You pause beside a pool of water so still it perfectly mirrors the luminous ceiling above. Ripples shiver outward as you dip a fingertip into its surface. It's like the night sky grew roots, you whisper. Hades watches you, his expression softening. This place is yours, Persephone, for when you wish to remember that even in the underworld, there is beauty. Your throat tightens. Why keep it hidden? Because not all souls are ready to see beauty here, he says. Some find comfort only in shadow, but for you, it belongs. You look around, overwhelmed by the hush, the pale glow, the scent of damp moss and starlight. It's incredible, you breathe. Thank you. Hades inclines his head. In time, perhaps you will tend it yourself. Some retellings of your myth hinted that Persephone transformed the underworld, planting flowers that never withered, weaving vines through silent halls. As queen, she became not only ruler, but a quiet gardener who proved that even death could hold gentle wonders. You stand in the center of the hidden garden, turning slowly as your gown stirs faintly around your legs. Everywhere you look, delicate blooms pulse softly in shades of silver, blue, and pearl. For the first time, the underworld feels less like a realm of shadows and more like a secret waiting to be nurtured. You glance at Hades. Will you show this place to anyone else? He shakes his head. No, only you. And though the dark halls of the underworld lie beyond the garden's archways, you realize that here, in this hidden bloom of silver and starlight, you found something deeply your own. A quiet place where life persists, even beneath the weight of stone and silence. You linger in the hidden garden for a few moments longer, letting the hush and silver glow wash over your senses. Then Hades touches your arm lightly. There are still others who wish to see you. You blink. More others? A faint curve touches his lips. You're a queen now. Visitors are inevitable. He leads you out of the garden, back through winding corridors until the glow of the flowers fades into shadows once more. The air grows cooler, carrying a sharp metallic tang that feels like a distant thunderstorm waiting to break. Eventually, the hallway widens into a broad chamber, lit by flickering torches set into the stone walls. The flames throw long, shifting shadows across carvings of wings, scales, and eyes that seem to watch you as you pass. At the center of the room stand three women, their robes dark as midnight, their hair wild and coiling like serpents caught in a breeze. Their eyes shine with a fierce, unsettling light. The Furies, Hades murmurs, or as they prefer, the kindly ones. You swallow. Kindly? One of the Furies steps forward. Her eyes are sharp and bright, yet her expression is not unkind. Queen Persephone, she says, her voice smooth as oil over a blade. We have long awaited your audience. Some poets describe the Furies as terrifying avengers, wings unfurled, hair writhing with serpents, their voices shrieking punishment. but other stories insisted they were protectors of justice, defenders of balance, and even gentle companions to those who honored truth. The second fury leans closer. We've come to offer guidance. You blink. Guidance? The third fury inclines her head. Ruling the underworld requires a certain presence. Hades steps back slightly, a faintly amused glimmer in his eyes. I'll leave you in their capable hands. You whirl around. Wait, you're leaving me with them? He lifts his brow. I have faith in you. Then he slips away into the shadows, leaving you standing before three immortal embodiments of divine retribution. The first fury clears her throat. Let's begin. Lesson 1. The art of the glare. You blink. The glare? Of course, she says firmly. Nothing asserts authority quite like a well-timed glare. Observe. She turns and fixes her sisters with a look so intense that even the other two furies flinch slightly. Subtle, murmurs the second fury, rubbing her arm. Very effective. You try your best to imitate her glare. The first fury tilts her head critically. Not bad. Needs more smolder. Less confusion. You frown. I'm not used to glaring. My mother says it causes wrinkles. The second fury snorts. Wrinkles are the least of your worries in the underworld. Some ancient scholars insisted the furies were both terrifying and protective, that their punishments were meant to restore cosmic harmony rather than simply wreak havoc. In certain mysteries, they were invoked for mercy as often as vengeance. The third fury steps closer. Lesson 2. The proper use of silence. You squint at her. Silence. As a weapon? Exactly, she purrs. Sometimes saying nothing is far more terrifying than shouting. Stand very still. Breathe slowly. Let the silence stretch until the other person spills every secret they've ever kept. You try to stand still, but after 3 seconds, you burst out laughing. Sorry, I can't. The first fury sighs dramatically. We'll work on that. They cluster around you, each offering conflicting advice. Your cloak needs more dramatic swirling. No, fewer swirls. Subtlety is key. Practice your I know what you did face. Speak only in riddles for maximum effect. You rub your temples. Do you ever just relax? The furies exchange a look. The second one shrugs. Sometimes we knit. The first fury lifts a finger. We do embroidery with skull motifs. The third adds, it's very therapeutic. A tiny laugh bubbles up inside you. I don't think anyone would believe the furies sit around embroidering skulls. The first fury folds her arms. And that's precisely why it's effective. No one expects it. Some historians believe the furies symbolize the inner voice of conscience, haunting mortals who strayed too far from justice. Others thought they represented society's need for order, lurking quietly until summoned by the scent of wrongdoing. The third fury steps forward, lowering her voice. You'll be a fine queen, Persephone. But remember, compassion is power too. You blink, surprised by the softness in her eyes. Rule with balance, the first fury adds. Let the underworld fear you and love you. The second fury leans closer. And never forget the glare. They bow low in perfect unison, their dark hair falling around their faces like a curtain. You smile, despite the swirl of shadows around you. Thank you, I think. And as the furies slip back into the dim corners of the chamber, you realize that even among avengers of cosmic justice, there is humor, warmth, and an unexpected willingness to offer lessons in the fine art of dramatic presence. After the Furies slipped back into the shadows, you let out a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding. For a moment, the silence wraps around you like a cool cloak. Hades steps forward from the darkness, a faint curve at the corner of his lips. I trust they were helpful. You give him a wry look. Define helpful. He chuckles quietly. Come, there's something else I wish you to hear. He guides you down a long stairway cut into solid rock. The steps spiral deeper and deeper until the air grows damp and cool. A faint, rhythmic sound drifts upward, a gentle pulse, like distant waves breaking on a hidden shore. Eventually, the stairs open into a cavern so vast it seems to have no walls. The ceiling disappears into darkness, and a great lake stretches out before you, black and glassy, reflecting the faint glow of scattered lanterns floating on its surface. You stare out across the water, mesmerized by how utterly still it is. It's beautiful, and a little eerie. Hades gazes at the lake. This is the Lake of Echoes. Some ancient poets believed that the underworld contained hidden lakes, where voices lingered long after the souls who spoke them were gone. The Greeks imagined music drifting beneath black waters, carrying secrets and sorrows through currents unseen. As you listen, you realize the soft pulsing isn't just water. There's music woven into the hush, a gentle melody that rises and falls like breath. Do you hear that? You whisper. Hades nods. Songs from the shades, those who were musicians, poets, singers. Their voices linger here. A shiver races down your spine, even after death, especially after death, he murmurs. You edge closer to the water's edge. The surface ripples faintly, and suddenly, shapes begin to emerge beneath the glassy blackness. Figures shimmer into view just below the surface. Men and women with translucent skin, each holding a lyre, a flute, or simply lifting their voices in silent song. Their faces are calm, eyes closed in quiet devotion. One woman's lips move as though singing, though no words reach your ears. Instead, you hear a sweet, haunting melody that threads itself into the soft lap of water against the rocks. You swallow hard. Who are they? Artists, Hades says softly. Those whose music shaped mortal hearts. Here, they continue their craft, even in silence. Some historians believe the Greeks placed tremendous importance on art, enduring beyond life. That poetry, music, and stories could outlive any mortal breath. Perhaps these tales of the underworld's hidden music were a way of promising that beauty never truly dies. A soft wave laps closer to your feet. As it retreats, it leaves behind a faint shimmer of pale light, like moonlight spilled across wet stone. You stare at Hades. Can mortals hear them? He inclines his head. Rarely. Only those who listen closely enough to the hush between heartbeats. The music beneath the lake shifts again. A new melody rising, woven with high, trembling notes that seem almost playful. Sometimes, Hades murmurs, they play songs that have been lost in the mortal world for centuries. Your breath catches. So music never really disappears. Nothing beautiful is ever truly lost, he says. A ripple of laughter floats through the cavern, a gentle, airy sound that seems both distant and close. You realize it's coming from one of the shades beneath the water. He drifts closer, his translucent fingers moving across invisible harp strings. Hades leans in slightly. That's Timotheos. He once composed an ode to fish sauce that was wildly popular in Athens. You blink. An ode to fish sauce. Hades shrugs. Mortals find beauty in unexpected places. A quiet laugh escapes you. Only the Greeks would write poetry about condiments. Some modern scholars have discovered fragments of bizarre ancient hymns praising everything from olive oil to particularly well-crafted sandals. It seems even the most mundane things inspired verse. You listen as the music changes again, softening into slow, soothing chords that make your shoulders relax and your breath deepen. It's calming, you murmur. Hades' voice drops low. It reminds the shades that they are remembered. You stand together in silence, watching as the shapes beneath the black water continue to drift and play. And in that moment, surrounded by darkness and music, you understand something profound. That even here, where shadows reign, beauty hums quietly beneath the surface, waiting to be heard by anyone brave enough to listen. You stand for a moment longer beside the lake of echoes, the last notes of hidden songs fading into the quiet lapping of black water. Hades gently takes your hand. "There's one more thing I wish to show you," he says. "Something lighter." You tilt your head. Lighter? In the underworld? A flicker of amusement crosses his face. Even here, there is joy. He leads you along another winding corridor. Slowly, the air begins to fill with faint sounds. Laughter, soft music, the rhythmic thump of drums. A warm glow begins to spill from around the next bend, casting soft shadows that dance along the walls. When you step into the chamber, you freeze in surprise. A vast hall stretches out before you, vaulted ceilings arched high above rows of long wooden tables. Silver lanterns hang from chains, spilling golden light across the stone. The scent of roasted nuts, honey, and fragrant herbs drifts through the air. Every table is filled with shades laughing and talking, their translucent forms shimmering as they reach for goblets, share plates piled with ethereal food, or sway gently in time with music played by ghostly musicians in the corner. You turn to Hades, wide-eyed. "What is this?" "The underworld feast," he replies, held every so often to remind the shades that eternity doesn't have to be all silence and shadows. Some ancient poets hinted at feasts in the underworld, where the dead gathered to share stories and drink wine, gentler moments woven among darker myths. It seems even the Greeks imagined that souls needed the comfort of community and celebration, even after life. You step closer to a table. A shade leans toward you, offering a platter heaped with delicate pastries that glow faintly as if dusted with starlight. "Try one, Queen Persephone," the shade chirps. "They taste like memories of springtime." You hesitate. "Wait, will this bind me here even more?" The shade waves a translucent hand. No, feast food is safe, mostly." Hades murmurs, "Mostly." You raise an eyebrow. "Mostly?" He shrugs. "It may inspire you to dance." You glance around and see a group of shades spinning in a graceful circle to the music. A haunting, lilting melody played on pipes and lyres. Their feet barely touch the floor, drifting like mist. A faint laugh escapes you. "Well, I've danced in stranger places." You pick up a tiny pastry and take a cautious bite. It bursts on your tongue with a sweetness like honey melting in sunlight, followed by a cool floral note that makes your eyes sting with sudden, inexplicable joy. "That's incredible," you whisper. Hades smiles faintly. The cooks here are rather talented. Further down the table, you see a group of shades animatedly debating something. You drift closer and catch snippets of conversation. No, Achilles absolutely started it." "He did not. It was Odysseus with that ridiculous horse." "I'm telling you, Helen was framed." You cover your mouth to hide a giggle. They're still arguing about the Trojan War? Hades sighs. Some feuds outlast death itself. In another corner, a shade stands on a table, passionately reciting poetry about the virtues of olive oil while gesturing dramatically with a goblet. I swear, Hades mutters, if I hear one more epic about olive oil. You laugh so hard you nearly drop your pastry. Some scholars believe these underworld feasts were metaphorical, showing that even after death, souls longed for familiar comforts, good food, shared stories, laughter. It was a reminder that the Greeks did not see death as an absolute severing from the pleasures of mortal existence. The music shifts into a faster tune, the drums pulsing like a heartbeat. Shades leap to their feet, sweeping one another into swirling dances. The laughter grows louder, echoing from the vaulted ceiling. A shade tugs at your sleeve. Dance with us, Queen Persephone. You glance at Hades. Should I? He inclines his head. It's your kingdom. Join them if you wish. A grin spreads across your face. Well, why not? You let the shade pull you into the whirling circle. Cool hands clasp yours, and you spin among drifting figures, silver lantern light flashing over smiling faces. The music soars higher, wrapping around you like silk, and in that moment, you feel a fierce, unexpected joy. You're Persephone, queen of the underworld, but also the daughter of Demeter, a girl who once danced through sunlit meadows. Here, in the hidden places beneath the earth, you realize there's room for both parts of who you are, for shadows and laughter. As the music swells, Hades stands at the edge of the dance floor, watching you with eyes that glow faintly in the golden light. And for the first time since arriving in this strange realm, you don't feel trapped. You feel like a queen whose kingdom holds room for music, for laughter, and for life blooming even in the deepest dark. When the music finally slows and the laughter ebbs into soft conversations, you slip away from the dancing shades, breathless and smiling. Hades meets you at the edge of the hall, his eyes holding a warmth that seems almost proud. Come, he murmurs. It's nearly time. Time? For what, you ask, though deep down you already know. Hades doesn't answer. Instead, he leads you through winding corridors once more, the echoes of your steps following like gentle whispers. The air begins to change. It grows lighter, tinged with something fresh, a cool, floral scent you haven't smelled in what feels like an eternity. The walls of the passageway shimmer faintly with veins of pale green stone, like young shoots pushing through earth toward the sun. You pause, drawing in a deep breath. It smells like spring. Hades glances at you, because spring is waiting for you. Some ancient poets believe Persephone carried the very essence of springtime within her, so that even the deepest halls of the underworld could not fully contain its pull. Every year, the world strained toward her return, longing for warmth and bloom. As you walk, you notice shapes gathered along the corridor, shades standing silently, heads bowed, watching you pass. Some smile faintly. Others press translucent hands to their chests in quiet farewell. They're saying goodbye, you murmur. They know you'll return, Hades replies. But still, they'll miss your presence. At one turn in the passage, you see the judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, and Aeacus, standing together. Minos clears his throat gruffly. Safe travels, Queen Persephone, he says. Try not to eat anything suspicious up there. Rhadamanthus leans in. And bring back some mortal gossip next time. Aeacus adds, and please no goats. You laugh softly. I'll Try my best. Further along, you find the Furies waiting. The first one fixes you with a stern look. Remember the glare. The second one hisses, and the silence. The third one adds gently, and kindness too. You smile. I'll remember. Some scholars believe that Persephone's return to the surface was not simply a personal journey, but a ritual moment in the cosmic calendar, a bridge between death and rebirth that reassured mortals that life would always triumph again. At last, you reach a broad staircase carved from pale marble. It spirals upward, disappearing into a soft glow that filters down like dawn spilling through leaves. Hades stops at the base of the steps. "This is the rising path," he says quietly. You swallow, glancing up. "Is this where we say goodbye?" "For now," he murmurs. "But remember, the wheel always turns, and you will return." A hush stretches between you, heavy and gentle all at once. Hades lifts one hand, brushing a strand of hair away from your face. His fingertips linger against your cheek. "Carry the underworld with you," he says. "Its shadows and its secrets." Your chest tightens. "I'll miss all of this." A flicker of humor touches his eyes. "Even the olive oil debates?" You laugh through a sudden sting of tears, especially those. Hades lowers his hand. "Go. Your mother waits, and the earth waits." You glance at the stairs again. Pale petals drift downward from somewhere unseen, fluttering like tiny white moths. Each step seems to glow faintly, beckoning you forward. Some versions of your myth claim that Persephone's departure caused shadows to weep, while the flowers above began trembling in anticipation. Every petal, every blade of grass seemed to lean toward the moment when she would break through the surface and bring warmth with her. You take one step upward, then another. The air grows fresher, warmer, filled with the faint hum of bees and distant birdsong. You pause, looking back at Hades one last time. He stands silent and steady, a figure of shadows and quiet strength. "I'll see you soon," you whisper. He inclines his head. "You always do." And with that, you turn toward the light, feeling it brush across your skin like the first kiss of spring. As you climb, your heart beats faster, filled with the strange, perfect knowledge that no matter how many seasons turn, you will always belong to both worlds. You climb the marble steps, each one bathed in a glow that grows warmer the higher you go. The faint scent of fresh earth and blooming flowers grows stronger, wrapping around you like a soft shawl. Somewhere above, a breeze drifts downward, carrying the distant rustle of leaves, the sweet chirp of birds, and the gentle murmur of running water. Halfway up the staircase you pause, looking back over your shoulder. The underworld yawns beneath you, shadows sprawling like dark rivers. Yet even from here, you glimpse faint glimmers, silver flowers blooming in hidden gardens, flickering lanterns floating over silent lakes, the shimmer of laughter echoing from far-off halls. You realize that, though this place once felt like a prison, it now feels like a realm that breathes with secrets and quiet beauty. Hades remains standing at the base of the stairs, watching you with eyes dark as midnight yet lit with a faint glow. "You are leaving a piece of yourself here," he calls softly. Your throat tightens. "And taking a piece with me." He inclines his head. "Such is your fate, and your power." Some ancient poets insisted that Persephone's dual existence was not merely a burden, but a gift. a bridge between death and life, a symbol that all things lost might bloom again. You descend a few steps toward him, unable to help yourself. Promise me, it will stay as beautiful as it is now. Hades looks at you steadily. As long as you return, it always will. You reach for his hand, your fingers brushing his cool skin. For a moment, the hush between you feels impossibly fragile. I never thought I'd care about this place, you admit. Yet you do, he says, because it is yours. You take a shaky breath. Will you miss me? A flicker of humor passes across his face. I will be quite busy listening to complaints about goats and olive oil. But yes. You laugh, even as tears threaten your eyes. Good, because I'll miss you too. Hades lifts your hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to your knuckles. His voice lowers. You carry the seeds of spring, Persephone, but you also carry the hush of shadows. That is why the world turns for you. Your heart twists with a quiet ache. I don't know if I'll ever feel entirely whole in either world. Perhaps not, he murmurs, but you are whole because you belong to both. Some scholars believe your story was meant to remind mortals that joy and sorrow walk hand in hand, that life's beauty shines brighter because of the shadows that brush its edges. You squeeze his hand once more, then step back. I'll come back, you promise softly. I know, Hades replies. You always do. He releases your hand slowly, as though reluctant to let you go. You turn once more toward the upward path. Sunlight pours brighter now, spilling in golden beams down the steps, casting long shadows behind you. Your foot rises onto the next stair, and you feel the underworld begin to fall away below you. The cool hush of shadows gives way to warmth, to birdsong, to a breeze that carries the promise of new growth. As you climb higher, petals swirl in the air around you, white and pale pink, brushing your hair and cheeks like soft whispers. You look over your shoulder one final time. Hades stands there still, a dark figure against the glow, silent and watchful. And though the distance between you grows with every step, you feel a thread binding you both, a promise, woven from secrets and seasons. And with that, you step into the light. And so, Persephone steps into the sunlight, petals swirling gently around her like soft whispers of promises kept. The breeze carries the scent of blooming crocuses and warm, tilled earth, as though the world itself exhales in relief at her return. Birds call from hidden branches. Bees drift lazily through shafts of golden light. Somewhere in the distance, a river murmurs over smooth stones, carrying secrets downstream to places unseen. Yet even as she lifts her face to the sun, Persephone carries with her the hush of shadows and the soft glow of silver flowers blooming in hidden gardens below the earth. For she is both maiden and queen, both seed and harvest, both sorrow and joy. She remembers the black lakes that sang with forgotten songs, the laughter echoing through underworld feasts, the gentle sway of asphodel under an endless twilight sky. She remembers Hades, silent and steady, his eyes lit with hidden warmth. Above all, she knows that the underworld is not merely a place of darkness, but a realm where life and death hold hands, weaving secrets into the quiet spaces between heartbeats. And as night begins to stretch across the sky, stars blink into view, one by one, each a tiny flame against the deepening blue. A hush settles over the world, the same hush that fills ancient marble halls and silver gardens far below the surface. So tonight, as you let your own eyes grow heavy, remember Persephone's journey. Remember that even the darkest paths can lead back into the light, that secrets bloom in hidden places, and that cycles turn, bringing warmth after winter's chill. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift like petals caught in a gentle breeze, because somewhere, beneath these same stars, Persephone stands watch, queen of two worlds, holding both shadows and springtime in her gentle hands. Sweet dreams.